watching TBPN.
Microsoft's blockbuster earnings last week. They blew out earnings. It was very exciting. They cemented its status as one of the biggest winners in the artificial intelligence boom. We knew this. Satya had carved out just a massive amount of territory. GitHub Copilot, first real major breakthrough product that was monetizing on top of GPT 3.5. Great product, obviously led by Nat Friedman when he was there.
Last we heard, it was at around $500 million in ARR,
something
but that
like
was
that.
2 months ago, so it's probably in the billions now.
Yeah, probably bigger. And then the crazy OpenAI deal, they got in very early. They have this massive revenue share. They have an ownership. They get a copy of any software that OpenAI writes, basically, or acquires. That's kind of crazy. And so
Satya did seemingly one of the best deals of all time for Microsoft.
Potentially, yeah. I think so. It's hard to. I mean, it's an awkward situation now, and it's a really hard decision.
Sam is, renegotiating the deal.
Yep. And Ben Thompson was noodling on this, like, should they take the money now, or should they play it more like a venture-style bet? What is the role of the CEO of a $4 trillion public company where the shareholders have different expectations? They're not seeing, if you hold Microsoft stock, you're not feeling like you're an LP in a venture fund.
Yeah.
So if the CEO comes to you and says, hey, look, we're taking the cash flow now, we're going to dividend some of this out, we're selling down the position, we're thinking strategically about this, as opposed to just, we want the highest multiple. We want to ring the gong on the deal. That could be reasonable. So obviously we're tracking where that goes. But they also have Clippy, generational precursor to potentially all the AI agents, the original AI agent, Clippy. Yeah. Potentially making a comeback.
The original superintelligence.
The original superintelligence. And
that was the first time they had to move the goalposts.
And this is why we're worried about getting paperclipped. Because Clippy will become too strong. I mean, with the power of OpenAI and Microsoft Azure, anything's possible there. So anyway, outside the AI race, Microsoft is minting money from corporate customers spending on regular technology, long a sweet spot for the company. Many companies are shifting from buying their own IT equipment to renting it from Microsoft through its cloud's computing service. They are also renting more standard issue computing stuff, hard drives for data storage, for example, to support their AI efforts. And so this is the key stat from the earnings call that the Wall Street Journal is highlighting, and then we'll kind of dig into this number and what it means, because there's a lot of different explanations for what could be going on. But Microsoft and the CFO and CEO didn't necessarily give all the context that we'd like to set this definitively, but I think there's some really good theories floating out there. So the quote from the Wall Street Journal is, a large chunk of the recent strong growth in Microsoft's cloud business, called Azure, stems from that. More than half of Azure's 33% revenue jump in the company's March quarter came from non-AI services. While the company didn't give a comparable breakdown of the cloud unit's 39% growth in its June quarter, it said that the core infrastructure business, Microsoft's lingo for its non-AI cloud business, was the driver. Jordy?
Massive win for enterprise SaaS. Just good old-fashioned SaaS. We had some theories.
So this is the thing. It's not SaaS.
Yeah,
they're not selling SaaS.
So it's people migrating from on-prem to
it's what's called
cloud.
Infrastructure as a service.
Yeah.
So there's software as a service. That's when you go and get Teams, or you go and get a subscription to Excel in the cloud, or Outlook in the cloud. That's software as a service.
I was saying more traditionally, someone else
people building. Using it as infrastructure as a service. Then there's also platform as a service. That's like Heroku on AWS, where you go and you deploy an app. You could think of maybe even like a Replit as like a platform as a service almost, where they're hosting you, but they're not just providing you the raw infrastructure. Azure's core infrastructure business is essentially infrastructure as a service. IaaS is the term. And that means, you want some CPUs and some hard drives and some Ethernet cables and moving stuff around, data transfer.
You had an interesting thesis offline earlier.
Yes.
You comped it to people in the internet era buying a computer. They hear about the internet. They're like, hey, I think this might be a thing. I should get a computer.
Yes.
And they just buy a computer. And now you could see something, where companies say, hey, this AI thing might be big. We should get on the cloud.
You want to set yourself up for it. And I think if you have a whole bunch of data in some sort of on-prem, you have a data center for all of your data in a bunch of hard drives, and you have CPUs that can do different workloads and data workloads, and maybe you're using some SaaS on top of that. But you realize that you're never going to be in a position to buy 100,000 H100s, and you're going to wind up being a leaser of that for some small fine-tuning run.
Other people's application layer products.
Yeah. And so the integration that comes from being in the Azure ecosystem, that could be a driver. There's a few others. When I think about the core, the AI Azure services, I think of that almost as, it is SaaS. Like if you go to Azure and you say, I'd like to, put my credit card down and I want to be able to use the GPT-4 API. And I also want to be able to use Llama 3. And I also want to be able to use DeepSeek. And I want to be able to call all these APIs within my product. I almost think of that as tokens as a service. Like it is SaaS, but it's something else. And I think these token factories, I think this idea of how much revenue are you generating from your token generation business is really what we're talking about when we talk about Azure's, core AI products versus the infrastructure. But there's a bunch of interesting wrinkles that could be going on within the classic core infrastructure business. So this, of course, is virtual machines. You just want a Linux box with a CPU to host a website. That's something that you do on Azure. Storage, networking. Okay, I want to store all my data. You could go to AWS and store it in S3. You could go to Google, store it in BigQuery. You could also go to Azure and fire up any sort of storage database or just raw hard drives, and then networking, moving stuff around. So this is the infrastructure as a service versus tokens as a service. They're higher level AI APIs. So GPUs are so the question is like, why is their infrastructure as a service growing faster than their tokens as a service product? You would think that Microsoft is going to their enterprise clients and saying like, you need to build AI, you need to bring AI into your products, and we have all the best APIs, so just buy tokens from us. And you would think that would be the boom.
Well, couldn't the other factor here be that they are massively supply constrained on the GPU side? And they have this, multi tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars of backlog that they can't fulfill. Meanwhile, they had a, more kind of like predictability on the traditional data center cloud side that they were able to scale up to. So that feels like a potentially like a pretty big driver here.
Yes, definitely.
But still shocking.
And so as companies come out and they say, okay, we are scaling our hardware and software our technology footprint broadly, going into this AI era, we're excited about this stuff. Well, we're also going to need more databases. We're going to need to put more data in those databases. We're going to need more CPU workloads. We're going to need more of everything. And Microsoft's like, yeah, of course, we can definitely get you a whole bunch more hard drives and a whole bunch more CPUs. We're not constrained on that at all. And the CapEx is keeping up, so they're able to service that. There's also an interesting thing where tons of AI stuff can technically be happening inside the core infrastructure bucket. You just don't necessarily know what's in there. So some examples are like, if let's say you're a pure AI company, or you have a new AI workload, you could go to Azure and say, hey, I'm going to do my own AI thing, but I need a ton of storage for data because I'm going to be training on it. I'm going to need a bunch of networking to move that data around when I do a training run. So that could be driving core infra up. And then also, if a bank hypothetically spins up a huge cluster of H100 GPU virtual machines to fine tune an open source model like Meta's Llama 3, this would show up as core infrastructure, not Azure AI services. And so that's like textbook AI boom. But it's just happening in the wrong bucket. And then I also saw a post that potentially ChatGPT counts as Azure core infrastructure, because they're not serving ChatGPT through the Azure AI API. It's not this like snake eating its tail Ouroboros. It's like OpenAI just came and said, give us a whole bunch of...
The headline itself ends up becoming pretty misleading.
Exactly.
And again, this was probably, a lot of people were reading into AWS's growth, the reports that, Andy, or the comments Andy had given on AWS last week. And the big thing that AWS is missing is having a ChatGPT building on top of AWS, right? There's no dominant consumer product, at least at that scale. ChatGPT, I think as of this morning, somebody was estimating getting to 1 billion weekly actives this year, which again, those types of products don't, the power law is like extreme, right?
So if you, I believe Anthropic is pretty tightly hitched to Amazon, and I think the next big cluster from Anthropic will be powered by Amazon for the most part, and so they're getting there. Certainly if they're building all the infrastructure for cloud.
But again, that would show up on
core
token generation side, like more of the
No. So if Anthropic goes to AWS and says, we want you to build a huge data center to serve Claude Code for us, that's going on in infrastructure.
Yeah.
Not actually APIs. But when you go to AWS and you're just some random company and you say, I need a database and I need some storage and I need a web server and I also need a bunch of tokens from whatever model you can serve me. And they're like, we got Claude. And then you're like, yeah, let's pull the Claude tokens into my app.
It's a good model.
That's token as a service. What?
It's a good model, sir.
It's a good model, sir. Exactly.
The one thing that stood out to me, that has stood out to me across this year with Microsoft is they've done more layoffs this year than the past 3 years before that combined. So 2022, 2023, and 2024.
That's crazy.
And so this just shows the level that Satya is operating at. Is like the company has been on a tear this year, performing exceptionally well, and he's still thinking about how do we get more and more fit. So
to be clear, literally every piece of Microsoft business is growing and at a very solid clip. So Microsoft 365 commercial cloud business, which houses remotely accessed versions of Word, Excel, other productivity software, that grew at 16% from a year earlier. So that's like, it's not the most insane growth rate, but that's still crazy because you think about who doesn't have Excel that needs it? Like who are these people who are like, you know what? 2025 is the year that my company's getting on Excel. We're doing it.
Well, it's just crazy when you compare it to AWS growing at 19%.
Yeah.
Obviously very different scales.
Yeah, totally.
You would think you don't want to be in the same ballpark as...
And so that was the news with AWS, if you missed it. They beat earnings. They did very well, but they weren't growing as fast as the others. The other cloud platforms, Google and Microsoft, and so the Amazon stock traded down. And I mean, the narrative around AWS is different because Microsoft has OpenAI, Microsoft Research, and has GitHub Copilot, and is like really moving things forward in the AI world. And Satya's seen as someone who goes on the Doorcash podcast and talks about AI, and it's clearly like really on top of it. And obviously Google has Gemini and a million different products and strategies around rolling that out and staying on the frontier. I mean, they have a frontier lab internally, and Amazon's just not there either on the partnership side or on the core training frontier lab side. And so it's a little bit of both. Anyway, let me tell you about Figma. Think bigger, build faster. Figma helps design and development teams build great products together. We had a great week in New York celebrating Figma and the IPO. Stock's been up, stock's been down, wild ride, but we are still very happy to be partnered with Dylan Field and the Figma team. And I'm super excited to see what happens next because
Thursday was such an incredible day. Just getting if you didn't get a chance to listen, we talked with the seed lead investor, all the way through, of course, Andrew Reed, who led the C.
Yep.
And then capped it off with Dylan and also got to speak with Lynn Martin, president of the New York Stock Exchange, as well as Chris, the CTO of Figma. So really incredible day, and it's just very proud of the Figma team.
Yeah, it was awesome. In one sense, investors might prefer to see AI businesses driving growth. That, after all, is what has driven the company's valuation through the roof. But tech companies' stocks arguably hinge on too much on AI. To the extent that they can keep increasing other revenue streams, they are on more solid financial ground. Of course, none of that means anything if all of the growth is coming from OpenAI. But at the same time, does anyone really think ChatGPT is Yahoo anymore? They're generating $1 billion a month in revenue at this point. Everyone uses the app. It's installed everywhere. Like that token demand is not going anywhere. That infrastructure demand is not going anywhere. So
on the other side, Amazon is down just over 9% since Thursday.
Since Thursday
earnings.
Wow.
And then this morning, unrelated, they announced that they're shutting down Wondery, the podcast studio they acquired in late 2020.
Wait, why did Amazon? Why did the market's way up? Wow, Nasdaq's up 1.8% today after a brief sell-off on Friday. Good news.
Bear market is over.
Yeah, we were so over, but we're already so back. It's fantastic.
Yes. Love when that happens.
Markets go up, markets go down, but the march of technological progress, the arrow points in but one direction.
That's right.
And its march is relentless. There is another silver lining for Microsoft. Non-AI sales can be substantially more lucrative than AI ones. Non-AI gross margins within Azure were around 73%. Wow. That compares to 30 to 40% gross margin for AI. He estimated because of the huge cost of setting up AI infrastructure, that makes sense. You get more margin on just a bunch of CPUs and databases that you've harnessed and built everything around. Also, you still have that interesting dynamic where it seems like all of the cloud, the hyperscalers, don't really compete on price because they're all pretty comparable, but they seem to all have really good margin.
Coca-Cola dynamic.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure if there's something else that's more fundamental going on.
And the Coca-Cola dynamic is I don't know if we, it's hard to tell what conversations were off air or on air, but John last week, forget when, was describing how you would think that Coca-Cola or Pepsi would decide to get aggressive on price to try to gain market share and get people to switch. But ultimately, that would just lead to a price war with both companies, massively eroding their margins, and then
it'd all be RC Cola coded then.
Yeah.
Every.
So if you have a fierce competitor, consider entering an unspoken gentleman's.
That's the
maybe a gentleman's agreement.
It's not even a gentleman's agreement. It's not. It is unspoken, but it is a natural game theoretic Nash equilibrium. It is the natural state of things that both sides understand that to go to war would be mutually assured destruction, and so they don't even need to talk about it. And so instead, they both agree to keep prices where they are, and instead compete on marketing. Compete on marketing, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they don't reformulate that often. They mostly compete on marketing, and that allows them to have this continually compounding business, and that's why it's in the Warren Buffett portfolio. Coca-Cola, he's been in there for a long time, and Pepsi's been doing well too.
And he was a DAU, of course.
He was a DAU of Coke.
Still.
Diet Coke or Coca-Cola?
Diet Coke.
I think Coca-Cola?
No, Diet Coke.
Oh, he's a Diet Coke guy? I feel like he was a Coca-Cola guy.
Warren?
Yeah, look that up. I want to know. Anyway, I'll keep reading from this Wall Street Journal report. Luckily for Microsoft, demand for lucrative non-AI services appears to be reasonably strong. Measures of broad IT spending.
Right.
There we go. You know why?
He was a regular Coca-Cola guy.
You know why? It's because it has corn syrup in it. It's literally corn grown from Mother Nature, from the earth. And then syrup, it's what you put on pancakes. It's the most wholesome combination of foods you could imagine. Maize. This is something that's been grown in America for generations, for centuries.
Corn is so popular in Nebraska, right? It's grown everywhere.
Exactly.
It's culturally
Take corn
significant.
And the syrup that you put on pancakes, it's the most American, most wholesome ingredient. It's not this refined sugar, this crazy stuff from somewhere else. No, it's American.
Corn syrup.
There's nothing. It's Lindy. Corn syrup. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Seed oil haters are in disbelief.
In shambles. That we need to return to corn syrup. None of this. None of whatever's in this Coke Zero.
Yeah, your grandpa was drinking corn syrup.
Yeah.
Buddy.
Oh, and it's too good for you because you read a couple posts on X.com. Think you understand something better than corn? Delicious corn on the cob. Something you have at a barbecue. Oh, now it's too good for you? Can't possibly have corn? What's next? No apple pie? What's next? No rotisserie chicken? No turkey on Thanksgiving?
Somebody's going to listen to the show for the first time today and just go raging DMs for you promoting corn syrup consumption.
It's as American as apple pie. And Warren Buffett knows best. He's doing great. End of one study. Sort of a Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
He's sort of the Brian Johnson.
He's the original Don't Die.
Yeah. And he's been doing fantastically on that front.
Yep.
He's great. Anyway. Measures of broad IT spending were fairly muted at the start of the year as companies pondered the impact of Donald Trump's tariffs, and concerns bubbled about the health of the global economy. Attitudes appear to have improved somewhat in the second quarter, though. A UBS survey of cloud computing customers in July showed a clear improvement in tone about spending. Most were moving forward with efforts to migrate computing work to the cloud. They're like, this internet thing is real.
It's real.
We got to put the data in the cloud.
We held back as long as we could.
But it's 2025. We have no more excuses. The tariffs, that's come and gone. Now's the time.
We were resisting the 21st century, but we're a quarter of the way through.
Put the data online.
It's not going away.
So let's use the computer online, in the cloud.
Put the docs in the cloud.
Put it in the cloud.
Just put the docs in the cloud.
Put the fries in the bag. Anyway, and put your compliance process on Vanta. Automate compliance, manage risk, improve trust. Vanta's trust management platform takes the manual work out of your security and compliance process and replaces it with continuous automation, whether you're pursuing your first framework or managing a complex program. In the longer term, there is little question that cloud computing is going to grow in ways that play to Microsoft's strengths. Its rivals, mainly Amazon.com and Google, are growing quickly too, but don't have all of Microsoft's broad corporate software offerings that enhance its cloud footprint, even outside of AI. Amazon on Thursday said its cloud unit grew at 17.5% in the June quarter, disappointing investors and forcing CEO Andy Jassy to answer questions about Azure's outperformance. Why are you getting beaten? You created this category. You created this product. Why is Satya Nadella?
You are cloud.
You are the cloud. You are the cowboy of the cloud, and you're getting put out to pasture. Recent quarterly earnings in Azure's favor were really just moments in time. He said.
Look at that chart, John.
Wow, that's worse than I thought. I wasn't sure where we had that pulled up.
I mean, it would have been hard to predict 5 years ago that we'd be sitting here with Microsoft at $4 trillion and
what's Amazon at?
I think 2.2 trillion.
2.2.
2.27.
2.27. Okay, so almost double.
Still magnificent, but
you got to keep fighting. The company's stock fell 8% Friday, and it looks like it's still sliding.
Down even more.
The question for Microsoft's investors then is less about its prospects than its valuation. The company's stock is up nearly 40% since the beginning of April, pushing its forward price earnings multiple above 33. That's a bit richer than Amazon and a large margin above Google, which is trading at a multiple of roughly 18 times. That should be easier for investors to digest because, while Microsoft's AI growth is real, it is far from the only thing going right at the software giant, because they got Excel, they got core infrastructure, they got AI, APIs, they got tokens as a service, infrastructure as a service, and software as a service. They got the royal flush. It's going well over at Microsoft. They won't need to call McKinsey, but maybe Amazon.com will. My question is, AI a sustaining innovation for Disney, or is it a disruptive innovation? Where will Disney be in 10 years, in the medium term? Obviously, you're going to be able to generate a lot of AI slop. You might be able to infringe on their IP. They might get paid by Google VO. When you generate a Mickey Mouse AI slop edit, they might get a couple pennies, but will it be good or bad for them?
Children's, I could see them making a product that allows you to make a, book or a story for your kid that actually, and they get some type of revenue. They should get
revenue, and I think that they will through the courts, especially because as big companies, you're not it's not this crazy, there's a bunch of kids doing random things. They never had to go after the street artist on Venice Beach that would draw a picture of Mickey Mouse and sell it to you for $20. That was never material to their business. They had to go after Napster. They had to go after Spotify.
I went to Venice Beach.
Yes.
I got them to draw me as Mickey Mouse.
Really?
And then I performed a citizen's arrest because I respect IP. I'm an IP respecter.
Yes. Citizens arrest is underrated.
Citizens arrest.
Citizens arrest. You're going to jail, buddy.
This is for Bob.
This is for Bob Iger. Yeah. So big question. This feels like a moment where you want to be in founder mode. Bob Iger is one of the greatest CEOs of all time. How will he navigate this? The Wall Street Journal says, is it still? He's not the founder. The founder died in 1966, Walt Disney.
But you're claiming that died, he's still.
He might be able to turn it on. Satya Nadella certainly was able to do it. He's navigating the AI shift flawlessly. We'll see what happens with Bob Iger and Disney. Wall Street Journal says, is it still Disney magic if it's AI? The stakes are especially high for the studio, caught between how to use artificial intelligence in the filmmaking process and how to protect its famed characters against it. So there's a little anecdote that we'll kick it off with. When Disney began working on its new live-action version of its hit cartoon Moana, executives started to ponder whether they should clone its star Dwayne Johnson. The actor was reprising his role in the movie as Maui, a barrel-chested demigod. Have you seen Moana? No, you have not. Of course, we know this. For certain days on set, Disney had a plan in place that wouldn't require Johnson to be there at all. Under the plan they devised, Johnson's similarly buff cousin, Tanoa Reed, who is 6'3", 250 pounds, would fill in as a body double for a small number of shots. Disney would work with AI company Metaphysic to create deepfakes of Johnson's face that would be layered on top of Reed's performance in the footage, a digital twin, essentially, digital double that effectively allowed Johnson to be in two places at once. Obviously,
Dwayne
that's better.
Calls up his cousin, you want a job? I need you to be me.
Yeah, hit the gym, buddy.
Yeah.
better be jacked.
Get on a cycle.
But yeah, I mean, these movie schedules are famously tight, 3 months in and out, crazy schedules, and then you move on to the next one. There's that famous Henry Cavill story where he filmed Superman, wrapped, moved on to another movie where he had to grow out a mustache. He grew out a mustache and a beard, and then they said, hey, we got to do some reshoots. You got to come back to Superman. And he came back, but he couldn't shave his mustache and beard, so they had to change it in CGI, and it looked terrible. Probably not a problem now with deepfakes. That's actually a good use of AI and something that probably shouldn't be very controversial, but obviously everything in AI is controversial right now. But we will continue with Disney. They say, what happened next was evidence that Hollywood's much discussed, much feared AI revolution won't be an overnight robot takeover. Johnson approved the plan, but the use of a new technology had Disney attorneys hammering out details over how it could be deployed, what security precautions would protect the data, and a host of other concerns. They worried that the studio ultimately couldn't claim ownership over every element in the film if AI generated parts were in there. So if there's AI training data from a DreamWorks film in there and they use the DreamWorks training data to make a Disney film, even if it looks like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, DreamWorks might come knocking and say, hey, give us a royalty. I think that's the risk. But the lawyers are having fun, maybe. Full employment for lawyers over at Disney, clearly. Disney and Metaphysics spent 18 months negotiating on and off over the terms of the contract to work on the digital double, but none of the footage will be in the final film when it's released next summer. They went and shot it. A deepfake Dwayne Johnson is just one part of a broader technological earthquake hitting Hollywood. Studios are scrambling to figure out how simultaneously they can use AI in the filmmaking process and how to protect themselves against it. Is it sustaining or disruptive or both? Can't be both, but we'll see. While executives see a future where the technology shaves tens of millions of dollars off a movie's budget, they are grappling with a present filled with legal uncertainty, fan backlash, and a wariness toward embracing tools that some in Silicon Valley view as their next century replacement. And if you are trying to sell an AI tool into Hollywood, you got to get on ADIO, Customer Relationship Magic. ADIO is the AI native CRM that builds, scales, and grows your company to the next level, and you can get started for free. So the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences is surveying members on how they use the technology. Studio chiefs are shutting down efforts to experiment for fear of angering show business unions on the eve of another contract negotiation, and no studio stands to gain or lose more in the outcome than Disney, the home of Donald Duck, Belle, Buzz Lightyear, Stitch, and countless others, which has churned out some of the most valuable and protected creative works over the past century. So my take on this. 2 years ago, I was hanging out with the founder of a very large generative AI image generation company. And he was telling me that by 2025, anyone with a laptop and an internet connection could generate a full Hollywood movie about anything they want with a single prompt. And it was a hilarious conversation because we were on a Zoom call and his internet wasn't working. And it was the classic example of like, the technology is amazing, but we got a lot of stuff to iron out. So anyway, extremely aggressive timeline, but obviously things are going to change for Hollywood. So my question is, will Disney benefit? It feels like a moment to be in founder mode, but Walt Disney died in 1966. So basically everyone believes that Meta will benefit from AI, even if they miss the train on owning the next dominant consumer tech platform. But if Disney got really AI pilled, what would that look like? I don't think they need to train their own foundation model, just like they don't need to train their own, they don't need to build their own cinema cameras. Yep. They can just use IMAX when the time calls for IMAX. They can use Blender when the time calls for Blender. They can use Houdini when the time calls for, when the shot calls for some high level VFX. Yeah. But they do need to rethink how they structure their business and negotiate with unions and underwrite content. They might need to go more risk on, not just from a brand risk position, but taking more smaller bets. We're in this weird barbell world where everything seems like it's either $100 and it's shot on an iPhone, it's a viral like TikTok, or it's $100 million blockbuster with like $50 million of VFX. Actually, that's kind of a low number. It's usually like $300 million production with $150 million VFX, and then no one sees it and it's a flop. But then they hit every once in a while and they're great when they're good. But it's this weird like venture style betting at the high end, but there's nothing in the middle. And maybe that's like the death of the art house film. But I'm just wondering if in the age of AI, like maybe there's this interim step where Disney ladders down a little bit and gives like 10 filmmakers $10 million each and says, hey, you're still required to deliver a 90-minute full film, but you're doing it for 10 mil, and it's not quite Blair Witch level production, one notch up. You got to be creative. This is what A24 is doing.
I'm really bullish on this idea that historically, like a TV show would film a pilot episode and they would use that to get the budget to shoot an entire season. And you can imagine now, you could, even for film, you can just make the trailer ahead of time with AI. The other advantage that I think Disney has that's very real, just going in and why they're just broadly seem to be positioned very well here, is that I think that broadly, like, content customization will probably take off, because Disney can make a film now, and then you could make millions of different variations of it that become interactive with like the underlying fan. So like imagine you're watching Moana, but like your kid is in the film, is a character in the film, and you can now do that at scale, right? Yeah. And how much more would you pay as a parent to have something like that?
I have a funny story about this.
But last thing I'd say, sure. So customization and just like democratizing, like basically being able to make variations of films, I think is going to be big. I think just the time, it's the same way it's so difficult to make a new luxury brand. It's so difficult to create. It's easy to create IP. It's hard, extremely difficult and time intensive to create valuable IP. And Disney's advantage is they have this sort of like 360, and that they can make a film and they can bring it to Disneyland, they can bring it to a cruise, they can create physical products around it. And so they develop IP in a way that new entrants are not, they don't have the benefit of like having a Disneyland where they can make new experiences that increase the value of that IP, right? So I think...
So two things. One, if I were to go back, one of my favorite Disney properties is Star Wars, A New Hope, the very first film. If I went back and was like, let's customize that for me, I don't know that I would make any changes. Like, do I really want a scene where Han Solo breaks the fourth wall and says like, hey, John, like I'm about to go, save Luke at the Death Star? Like, that doesn't improve the product for me. I actually like that it's just the vision of George Lucas. So I don't know about customization being better for me. I don't know what I would change.
But here's an example of how to make like a magical experience for a kid. It's like, imagine after a movie ends, a kid could interact with a character and ask it questions in real time, like about the story, or have a conversation with them. And that's what I'm talking about, like bringing that IP to life. Totally.
Right now that exists, and I was obsessed with this when I was a kid. I would watch Star Wars, and then I would read the books in the expanded universe. And I remember even having books that were just like encyclopedias of every single ship This you could read into this a little bit more, but we'll leave that where it is. But I would learn every single ship. This is what a Star Destroyer does, and it would have all this backlog and stuff. And so, yes, I agree with you. That's very cool. You finish the movie, and then you can just interview Luke about how does the lightsaber actually work, and he can talk about the kyber crystals. That would be very cool. On the flip side, I had a very funny experience. I was watching a horror film in high school with a couple friends, and I grew up in Pasadena, and this horror film just happened to take place in Pasadena. Like, that's where they set the film, because Pasadena, California is just like a place where you set films. It's just a real place. So if you've seen Kill Bill, which I know you haven't, but Kill Bill by Quentin Tarantino, there's a scene where Uma Thurman just shows up and it says at the bottom, Pasadena, California, because like that's where the character went. It exists in the real world. But this horror film that took place in Pasadena was terrifying, because I was watching it and I was like, this is happening here, and it's night and it's dark outside, and like now I'm so much more immersed. And so I was thinking back then that you could use like the IP address of a connected, I think we were watching it on like a PS3, like a DVD player. Like you could use the DVD player to dynamically change the location of the establishing shot. So you're like, this whole horror film is going to take place inside of like one house where there's like a monster in the house, and it's going to be like the usual, like they're upstairs, they're downstairs, there's blood, there's someone's running and chasing. Like it could be any town USA, but they usually establishes like this is happening in Amityville, this is happening in some random town, Lake Placid, right? But they could easily just dynamically change that with a few establishing shots to just show you, okay, it's happening in Malibu, right? And now it's a lot scarier for you. So I think there's something interesting there, but again, it has to be the work of like an auteur.
It's not something you can copy and paste either, because it works for some shows, but then others, like the place is so obviously the place that it would throw you off as a viewer.
Exactly. And so I do think that the fully AI generated, fully custom content, that will exist, but it will exist on independent third-party platforms. It won't be the domain of Disney. This will be something where if you, in the future, if you really want to see like, AI generated stories about surfing in Malibu, like there will be an endless stream of those, and you will be able to go and experience that particular content. And you can already kind of experience that because there's probably some Instagram person who makes really great content about surfing in Malibu. And if you follow them, you get that vibe, and that might be what you're into. And you can kind of like, and it's handled just by the great democratization of creativity. Yeah. And we should talk to Samir about this later. He's coming on the show. So we can talk about the future of content creation and whatnot. On the question of should Apple make a huge acquisition, Tim Cook actually addressed it in the earnings call. He said something like, we've acquired around 7 companies this year, and that's companies from all walks of life, not all AI oriented. We're very open to M&A that accelerates our roadmap. We're not stuck on a certain size of company, although the ones that we've acquired thus far this year are small in nature. And he said, like, we're acquiring one every few weeks, which is not quite 7 per year. I mean, I guess that's like 1 a month, but a few weeks, sure. So he's doing deals, but he's not looking at anything massive. And I think that actually makes sense. My question was, if you were the CEO of Apple and you had $100 billion burning a hole in your pocket, what are the other things that you could do with that money?
Formula One team.
You could buy every team and the division and every track and all the sponsorships. I
made a post about this joke.
It's crazy. It's so much money. It's so much money.
I made a post about this jokingly earlier this year. I still think it'd be cool for Apple to just be an F1 in the way that Red Bull is.
I think that'd be great.
Have a team.
No, I agree. I think that'd be great. The one thing culturally is like Apple's brand is very premium and very high end, and
I don't know if they could handle a few losing seasons.
This was the early bear case for Apple TV. I was talking to someone, a very successful Hollywood producer, and he was saying that the nature of Hollywood is like venture capital. Like it is a hits-driven business. If you don't accept that you're going to have massive flops and egg on your face and embarrassing moments, you will not make it. And just like any venture capitalist who is like, I only want to make investments where they won't blow up, you're not going to make it, right? Like,
yeah, Marc Andreessen there was a clip from a episode he did recently talking about how you lose sleep over the companies you don't invest in, not the ones you invest in and don't work.
Exactly. And so you have to be risk on. You have to be risk on in Hollywood as you do in venture. And so the question was like, can Apple deal with spending $50 or $100 million on some show that completely flops and everyone's like, this is a disaster? And they've navigated really well. I think that they have had some flops, but they've kind of tucked those behind the scenes. Whereas Netflix has started to get more kind of, people talk trash about, what was that, Red Notice? Or they did some massive movie with The Rock that kind of flopped. They've done a few of these big movies that haven't done that well. And it's sort of like, they're not, God's gift to, producing. But it doesn't matter because overall Netflix is doing very well, and all it takes is like one Squid Game to like carry the whole quarter, basically, just like in venture, or like one, you sign the Friends deal and then or The Office, and people are watching that like 20 years later. Apparently,
F1 has surpassed $500 million in box office earnings as of last week.
I mean, it's a fantastic
that's an example of a home run, but it's not like they're doing that once a quarter by any means.
No, and John Exley's in the chat. Shout out to John Exley. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to connect with him at our party in New York, but he did attend. You got to chat with him. A lot of the team got to chat with him. So thank you for all you do, John.
Absolute
we really appreciate you. The entire team is giving you a round of applause. Because
general of the chat.
You've done a ton of work for us, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, if you had $100 billion burning a hole in your pocket at Apple, what would you do? I have a bunch of crazy ideas.
Yeah, go through your list.
So most people would just say, hey, you're going to benefit from AI because you are the window into all technology, and it doesn't matter if it's generative video or text. Like, people will be consuming it on devices. You sell devices, you'll be fine. Just like search did not destroy Apple, it actually made Apple stronger because people search on their iPhones. So most people would just say, hey, return it to the shareholders. Apple's already done that. They've returned over $1 trillion to shareholders in the past 10 years. Those are kind of rough numbers, but it's basically that, which is an insane amount of money to return to shareholders. But Samsung is worth $330 billion. They could buy the entire company, lever it up with 2/3 debt, and they would just own both sides of the smartphone market then. Probably extremely anti-competitive. I think Lena Khan would have a conniption fit, but funny concept. The other idea is massively expand the retail footprint. So Apple right now, I was surprised by this. How many retail stores do you think they have worldwide?
I don't know, like 599 or 601.
Wait, did you look? Did I tell you this?
We talked about this morning.
It's 535. Okay. So it's not that many. It's mostly in the tier 1 cities. There's usually only like one in every city. They don't take the Starbucks strategy where they put them across the street from each other.
Yeah.
But for $100 billion, they absolutely could. $100 billion is enough to open 6,000 new Apple stores. So they would be 6,600. So they would be up around 7,000 stores, which for reference is as many Subways as there are, and as many CVSs as they are, and as many 7-Elevens as there are in America. And so everywhere you see a Subway, you can see an Apple store. And I feel like this would be a big upgrade for America. I feel like if you just walked around every American city, where tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 city, you just see a beautiful sheet of glass and it's an Apple store on every corner in America.
They could also acquire every firearms store in the country and turn them into Apple stores.
They could do a take private of Figma. Think bigger, build faster. Figma helps design and development teams build great products together. Get started for free at Figma.com.
I'm still buzzing from Thursday.
It was a fantastic day. We had
absolutely
a lot of
fun.
Fantastic. Exhausting, but we're back in the game
Anybody that is tuning into the show for the first time today is going to be hearing our ideas for Apple and just thinking, these are some of the worst ideas I've ever heard. But they're definitely fun.
Okay, so speaking of glass from the Apple stores, they could buy Corning, which makes Gorilla Glass. That's a $55 billion company. Then with the money left over, they could buy InterDigital, which owns all the patents on 5G and 6G. So they could basically patent troll everyone else in the industry.
Just get extremely anti-competitive.
They could also, with the money that is left over, we're still in the first, let's vertically integrate this company mode. They could also buy 10 rare earth or cobalt mines. So they own run the supply chain there. And then they could also build 4 battery gigafactories and lock up the sapphire crystal supply chain that's used on the iPhone camera. So they could just completely own their entire supply chain for $100 billion. And that's just 1 year. And then they, the proposal was do this every year.
The other thing that was interesting about Tae Kim's post is if you listen to the earnings call, Tim Cook and the team were very clear that they don't even want to finance like data center development themselves. Yeah. They're still working with these sort of like third-party lenders to like capitalize them. Totally. And so again, Tim Cook is the king of efficiency.
Yeah, he knows his business, and he's
Should we get into some of?
No, I have one more.
One more.
So, OpenAI, they acqui-hired Johnny Ive. They're coming out with something that's competitive. It's going to be some sleepless nights at Apple when that thing drops, right? It's going to be stressful because like maybe it doesn't go super well, but like it's a serious threat. OpenAI is a serious company. They have a lot of customers, and they got Johnny Ive, your former GOAT designer, ready to drop.
And a bunch of former Apple employees that are now
amazing team over in hardware at OpenAI. So the question is like, how do you fire back with your Apple and you have $100 billion to spend? Here's what you do. The COGS on an iPhone are less because they have a margin. So you take that $100 billion, you buy 200 million iPhones, and you send a brand new iPhone to 200 million Americans. And you're just like, oh, how much are you charging, Johnny Ive and OpenAI? Well, ours is free this year. We're doing a free iPhone for the entire year.
They should just do something like that where it's like your 11th iPhone in a row is free.
They'd probably have 200 million people with free iPhones. And they're just like, yeah, we want to keep you in this ecosystem. We like our services revenue. We're
excited to be a platform.
We're excited. We're just giving it back. Can you imagine? I think that would also be extremely anti-competitive. I don't even know if there's a regulatory framework to stop that from happening. But I mean, price competition is a real thing. And like, if you discover that your competitor is undercapitalized and can't win a capital war, you could potentially cut prices so dramatically that it's like, yeah, the other phone's like cool, but this one's free. I guess I'm going to stay in the blue bubble world.
Tim Cook for a little next bit earnings call. All right, we're going to buy all of the mines we depend on, and we're going to make the iPhone free. Stock just yeets like 80%.
He's like, I'm petty. And you know what, Johnny Ive? I'm not going to let you win.
I would rather die than let you win.
Yeah, I would destroy myself. I've been reading a lot about cutting your nose to spite your face.
I'm pretty into it. I'm pretty into the strategy.
I'm into it. Anyway, let me tell you about Vanta. Automate compliance, manage risk, improve trust continuously. Vanta's trust management platform takes the manual work out of your security and compliance process and replaces it with continuous automation, whether you're pursuing your first framework or managing a complex program.
Talk to the Purple Llamas, Vanta.com.
Anyway, so Ben Thompson's been noodling on Apple and AI strategy. He had a rough go because I think he took some time off or shifted his posting schedule right when all the earnings dropped and there was all this crazy stuff going on. So he's just writing about Apple earnings now, but he still has some good takeaway saying, even if Apple does swoop in and buy Mistral, for example, the overall point holds. Apple isn't going to compete with OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, X, and Google on pursuing AI superintelligence. Like 5 extremely well-funded, extremely serious teams. Apple's gonna go their own way, centered on their devices and their direct relationship with their customers, at least as long as Cook is in charge. And anyone that's saying that Cook needs to step aside, I think is in for a world of hurt because he's been on a generational run and he's solving the most important problem for that company, which is not the application layer in artificial intelligence. It's the supply chain and keeping the flow of iPhones coming
and selling phones.
Put the phones in the boxes. Tim, he's doing it. He's doing it. He's really underrated. He's been CEO longer than Steve Jobs was. Now. He's the longest tenured CEO of Apple in history.
He better be bringing some of these AI researcher comp packages in as comps when he gets in front of the comp committee at Apple.
Yeah.
Say, hey,
That is true. He should definitely be getting a bump. If he does have researchers, I mean, he has AI researchers. They are improving different functionality. I feel like maybe I'm hallucinating this, but it feels like the text-to-speech engine has gotten better on my phone. I listened to a semi-analysis article with the default Apple Safari text-to-speech, and it was very listenable. So I think we're getting better there. We have some breaking news about Sirius XM. They are canceling the Howard Stern show. Can you call it a cancellation when the guy's 71 years old and he's been doing it for 20 years? They say it's no longer worth the investment. They've been paying him $100 million a year. That is a huge salary. And that's what, 3-4 times Colbert? Wow, that's big. That's the power of radio, power of, the power law. He's done fantastically. So congrats to him. Howard, if you're looking for a new gig, you're welcome to come and hang out at the Ultra Dome. You can sit at the intern table next to Tyler, and we'll bounce ideas off you.
Yeah, it's wild. I really wonder where the SiriusXM business goes. Right?
I know where this goes. Post AGI, you're going to listen to every hour of Howard Stern. I know you've listened to 0 hours, but there's probably 20,000 hours in the catalog or something like that of Howard Stern content. You could listen to it from the beginning.
Do people listen to the back catalog ever?
Absolutely not.
But SiriusXM is still a $7 billion company.
Wow.
That's bigger than I would have thought.
I wonder, revenue, like how much of that cost. I mean, it makes sense to give him a huge slice of that. It is a talent-driven business, and he could go to Spotify. He could go somewhere else. My question is, he is old. Will he retire, or will he do a podcast or do something independent? Is there news?
No, they...
What?
They apparently did how much?
Okay, you look that up while I tell you about Wander. Find your happy place. Book a Wander with inspiring views, hotel-grade amenities, dreamy beds, top-tier cleaning, 24/7 concierge service. It's a vacation home, but better. Now,
so they did $8.6 billion in 2024 revenue. So they're trading at less than 1x revenue, which just says when you have a shrinking business, it is a rough place to be in.
Not a growth stock, I suppose. I wonder how much of that is getting eaten up by talent. Yeah,
this is a $1 trillion stock if they have.
Yeah, I wonder what percent of Sirius XM content is power law, celebrity, host read, high salary contract versus essentially programmatic or AI content. Because it's probably not even AI, but if you're just there's a station on Sirius XM that's just the Grateful Dead. And it just plays them the whole time. I don't think you need someone making $100 million to randomly play Grateful Dead tracks. There's probably some Grateful Dead fan who manages that and picks the songs and orders them. But that could essentially be pseudo-random. Maybe one day you go through the back catalog and then the new stuff, and then you mix it up, and then you play the hits or something. I don't even know if they have hits in that way. I know it's kind of a jam band, but. I wonder of their content, of their tonnage. Is that the term? Tonnage is the amount of content on the network. I wonder how much of it is driven by these high dollar deals, and I wonder if they'll get a new host in the seat. I wonder who this generation's Howard Stern is. Maybe it's Tim Dillon or something, some irreverent comic.
I think the thing is, as content is on demand, fewer and fewer people are just turning on the radio or turning on the television and listening to whatever just happens to be playing. And so if you take people that were subscribed to Howard Stern, and we're you liked Howard Stern, we're now just going to play this other person through his channel. They're just going to ask, what's going on here? Yeah,
I mean, certainly if you have a specific car that has Sirius XM and it doesn't have Spotify, and Howard Stern's new show is on Spotify because it's a podcast, you might stick around on Sirius. Maybe they get someone new in the seat who's almost as good or can build a relationship, but it does seem like a challenge to fill that. But also, it's a lot of money to pay, so clearly it wasn't penciling out, so they had to move on. OpenAI has announced an open source model. They said they'd never do it. Everyone's saying
it was in the name. It was in the name. How could you have doubted?
Closed AI. Closed AI. They're not OpenAI. They're closed AI. Everyone thought they were so clever. They said they couldn't possibly open source a model, and they did.
They did.
They did it. The unthinkable.
First open model in years. Right, they used to have them.
Was GPT-1 open source? Like when was the last time that? So we're going to talk to Tyler about this.
I want to say
in the studio today.
GPT-2
was still open source, and then they decided to close source something. It's tough that I treat you like things that I could Google, and I know that you just have to search it or ChatGPT it. But good luck. Get me the information on the history of OpenAI's open source models. In the meantime, I will read this post from Sam Altman. GPT OSS, all lowercase. He's still in lowercase mode, although he uppercases the other sentences, but he threw in, he likes lowercase.
Is he sending you messages, John?
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing coded messages in here. GPT OSS is a big deal. It's a state-of-the-art open weights reasoning model with strong real-world performance, comparable to O4 Mini, that you can run locally on your own computer or phone with the smaller size. We believe this is the best and most usable open model in the world. We're excited to make this model the result of billions of dollars of research available to the world to get AI into the hands of the most people possible. Hit that soundboard again. I want to keep it going. We believe far more good than bad will come from it. For example, GPT OSS 120B performs about as well as O3 on challenging health issues. We've worked hard to mitigate the most serious safety issues, especially around biosecurity. GPT OSS models perform comparably to our frontier models on internal safety benchmarks. We believe in individual empowerment. Let's hear it for individual empowerment, people.
I feel empowered the way that you're reading this, John.
Although we believe most people will want to use a conventional service, a convenience service like ChatGPT, people should be able to directly control and modify their own AI when they need to. And the privacy benefits are obvious. As part of this, we are quite hopeful that this release will enable new kinds of research and the creation of new kinds of products. We expect a meaningful uptick in the rate of innovation in our field and for many more people to do important work than we're able to before. OpenAI's mission is to ensure AGI that it benefits all of humanity. To that end, we're excited. I think I cut this screenshot off. We're excited for the world to be building on an OpenAI stack created in the United States based on democratic values, available for, I didn't screenshot the rest of that, but, oh, here it is. Available for free to all and for wide benefit. So I imagine that was the voice that was in his head.
Intended.
As the author intended. Exactly.
Will Depew has some more notes here, some context. So less than 1 year between O1 announced, which was September of 2024, and we have an O3 level model, open sourced, that's runnable on consumer hardware.
Let's go.
Wild progress. You were highlighting earlier, Sam initially had a poll.
Oh, yes.
Saying like, should we, what do you want? Do you want an O3 level model, or do you want something that you can run?
He did
locally?
both.
And he did both.
Wow, so we were reading that. So it was what, like 6 months ago or something, that post that you shared?
Yeah, I think so.
So I asked Tyler to dig this poll up. Sam Altman shared a post that it was a poll on X saying, what do you want? Do you want an O1 level model, reasoning model, a frontier model, open source, or do you want something you can run on your phone? And it was neck and neck, and people were clicking on the phone model. They were like, we want the phone model. And then Dylan Patel quoted it and said, oh, you idiots, don't vote for the phone model. You can distill
Let's
llama.
Get a truly frontier model.
Let's get a frontier model. And so Dylan Patel was very much like you guys don't know what you want. Like the phone models are available. That will be easy. The hard thing, we got to twist OpenAI's arm to open source the reasoning model, the O3 level model. And Sam Altman just said, you wanted this or this? It was a false dichotomy.
Both.
You get both.
You get both.
Yassine
says, all caps, I am so sorry for doubting you, Sam Altman. I am so sorry for saying that you were the Antichrist. I didn't realize your plans were measured in centuries. I hope you forgive me for everything. I'm so glad you kept control of OpenAI. I am so sorry. Please forgive me.
That's remarkable. Never talk down on the future first ballot Hall of Famer, apparently. The future leader of open source AI. Will be very interesting to see how Meta responds. Will they stay in the open source game? Also, just how important is open source? Is this a Linux scale opportunity? Is this an Android scale opportunity? Like, is this, is this GitLab to GitHub? Like, what's actually the long-term play? Certainly cool. Great for the community. We're going to see fun experiments. We're going to see interesting things done with this. I think, do we want to talk about some of the ideas that we had for building on top of this open source model, fine tuning? I can just run through some. I know there was one you didn't want to share because you thought it was too good, too much alpha. But what was it? What was I talking to you about, Tyler? What were our ideas? We had one that was...
initially we weren't sure there was going to be reasoning.
That's right.
So we were going to add fake reasoning.
Yeah, so it was going to be a model that gaslights you into thinking it's reasoning when in fact it's not reasoning. So we would just...
if you look at the actual reasoning UI, it's just UI. It's not, there's no actual reasoning. It's like, so you ask the question, time delay. It's a time delay, and it just says, and then while thinking really hard.
Let me think about that.
What would a super smart person think right now?
So we could actually still kind of do that because it's not a multimodal model.
Okay.
But we could we just add some kind of like totally blank encoder or something for the image.
Okay.
And then it's this is an interesting image. Let me think about what's in it.
Yeah, one of the best images I've ever seen. A lot of people are saying this is one of the greatest images. Thank you for sharing this PNG and or JPEG with me. It just knows nothing about the image. It's great. I'm seeing that this image is large in file size. It's just purely metadata-based analysis. Doesn't know anything about what's going on. You're like, wow, this is a tough question. I'm going to have to generate a lot of internal reasoning tokens to answer this. Test time inferences really is magical, isn't it? Anyway, back to thinking. Okay, I'm reasoning about this now. Yeah. So
the other obvious opportunity, people have been frustrated with sycophancy with the models and models being.
Well, not me. I've been frustrated with the lack of sycophancy.
Yeah, you want more.
Yes.
You want more.
I want more.
You want the model to gas you up, but fine tuning it to go over the top. Somebody could release the Glazinator 3000,
I think that's
which just tells the user, you don't just think you're goated. You are goated. I know this, you know this.
It's like, I'm asking you to solve IMO question 6. Why are you talking about whether or not I'm goated? It's like, it just tells you, like, you got this one. The timing
here is interesting. I mean, everybody's been banging the table saying, where is the American open source AI or LLM leader? It was reported yesterday by the misinformation that Reflection. The misinformation reported that Reflection, one-year-old startup, we've had the CEO on before, is in talks to raise $1 billion to develop open source models to compete with DeepSeek, Meta, and Mistral. And all of the Chinese open source models have been on a tear. Qwen released Qwen Coder recently.
Yeah, people are into Qwen.
Or a new version of it that is getting good results. So it's important work. We want multiple horses
so one
in the
interesting
race.
thing that's kind of related to the US-China race is like, so when DeepSeek first came out, everyone was like up in arms because they said like it was less than $5 million to train, right?
Yep.
So in the model card for these models, they actually reveal like the GPU hours it took, which then you can like figure out how much it probably costed to train.
Give me the number and tell me if I need to ring the gong for that.
So for the big model, it was probably around like 4 million. So but the small model was like 500K, probably a little less. But that's like 10x better. The model is way better than DeepSeek R1.
Okay. So should I ring the gong?
I mean, I think it's pretty sweet.
I wanted to hear 400 million at least. I was expecting $9
million.
9 They got $1 billion of revenue coming in every month.
But it's cool that
it 10 days of revenue on the open source model. No, it is very cool. So we're ringing the gong for the elegance of the training run.
Yeah.
Efficiency.
Everyone in OpenAI. on efficiency and cost
delivering a great
control,
model, saving time and money,
putting money back in the hands of shareholders and not in the hands of open source developers, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, do you think that is this like a pre-training scaling wall narrative? Like would you, as someone who is a potential consumer of an open source model, like, do you want a $400 million open source model? Would that necessarily be better? Because it seems like they were able to distill it pretty well, get it to the frontier, not burn a ton of money on training. Also, the question is like, if this is probably distilled from their other models that are much bigger. So like there is no world where you could just spend $4 million and get this level model without also having done the GPT-4 run, the GPT 4.5 run, et cetera, right?
Yeah, maybe. It's also just like, even if they didn't distill it, they just have the knowledge of like how they did it,
totally.
Which is like arguably more valuable, right?
Yeah. So
and I think in terms of like open source, it's either you want to go like super cheap and super small, which they kind of did here, or you go super big, like almost like the llama, like the behemoth, right?
Yeah.
I think it would have been really cool to see that, like literally like state of the art, level model.
You could also try and ask Claude, hey, build me a frontier open source model. Don't make mistakes.
Yeah, we're going to have someone from Claude on soon. This is funny because, wait, you said $500K for the small model?
Yeah, probably less.
So that's the same amount of money that they're putting up for this challenge, the red teaming challenge. Have you seen this? So to encourage researchers, developers, and enthusiasts, that's me, from around the world to help identify novel safety issues, this challenge has a $500,000 prize fund that will be awarded based on review from a panel of expert judges from OpenAI and other leading labs. At the end of this challenge, we will publish a report and open source an evaluation data set based on the validated findings so that the wider community can immediately benefit. So if you can hack this thing, if you can get it to teach you how to develop a nuclear bomb or take over the world, you might have $500K in your pocket. Not bad. Go get some of that. That's a seed round in 2012. Welcome to the stream. How you doing, Mark?
Hey, what's happening?
Great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
A lot. It's a little bit of a slow news day, but exciting stuff with GPT, open source.
It's not a slow August.
It's not a slow August. We're glad. We were just reflecting that we've taken exactly one day off this summer. That was July 4th, and we're showing the Europeans how American companies work.
American work.
We're setting an example, and we have proof of work because we exist on the internet, and you can see us live every day. So we're setting an example. How are you doing? How's your summer going?
Fantastic, going really well. So how long is it going to be until you guys put up avatars that make claims that you're working hard all through the summer, but it turns out you're on the beach?
You might have caught us.
I think you'll know better than us as to when the technology gets there. We've been demoing some of the stuff. People have been doing a lot of deep fakes of us, and fortunately, all of them have been clockable, so it doesn't feel like a brand risk, but they're getting closer and closer. And I know that there's going to be a moment when we have to say, hey, that's actually using our name and likeness to endorse something that we don't necessarily endorse. Can you please take that down? So we're approaching the Turing test, the uncanny valley. We're escaping the uncanny valley.
I think a question, like looking back over the, maybe 10 or 15 years, was what moments did you feel like there just was not a lot of action happening? Because this summer is just the pace from so many different teams has been absolutely insane. Everybody's like trying to keep up. And it didn't used to feel that way, at least from my point of view.
So my view of it always is there's these disconnected, kind of patterns or trends. There's sort of the sort of day-to-day phenomenon where like engineers show up every day and they make things a little bit better. And then every once in a while, you get a technical breakthrough or a new platform. And that process, kind of this, kind of sawtooth, kind of up to the right kind of process kind of plays out over time, kind of regardless of what else is happening in the world. And so it keeps happening through recessions and depressions and wars and like all kinds of crazy stuff that's happening. But basically, the technology keeps getting better. So there's kind of that curve. And then there's the sort of enthusiasm curve and then the adoption curve, which is basically like, when do these things actually show up in the world? And then, by the way, when are people actually ready, for the new thing? Like if you talk to the people who worked on, I'm sure you guys have talked to people who work on language models, they will tell you that they were surprised that ChatGPT was the breakthrough moment because they thought everybody already knew what these models could do for, 3 years before that. And so they were shocked that it was the chatbot interface that made the thing go. And so there's somewhat of a sort of arbitrary disconnection between what's actually happening in the substance and then what people are seeing and feeling. And so it's really hard to predict when these things pop. But also, if you're in this day to day, it's really hard to tell when things are going to be hot or not. Because it doesn't necessarily map to how much the technology is improving.
Yeah, we were just talking about that in the context of Google's new world model. It's this like generative video game that you can kind of move around in, and it feels like DeepMind is just absolutely crushing at the AI research frontier. They have the best world model simulator that you can walk around in. The question is like, if they let another lab do the ChatGPT thing and just get it out into the consumer 3 months earlier, they might wind up kind of chasing and trying to catch up if somebody actually figures out how to make it like a dominant consumer product. Now, in the enterprise, it's more oligopolistic, but consumer seems to be winner take all. I guess the question is like, how much value do you place right now in the AI race to just like moving fast, breaking things, having like the thick skin to deal with like the safety constraints and all of the different stuff, obviously not being irresponsible, but just speeding up the organization as much as possible. It feels like now is the time to really push on that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I need to correct you. It's moving fast and making things. I don't know where
that's right.
I don't even know where that came from. I have no idea. What
never heard of it.
I mean, ChatGPT didn't really break anything. I think that's a good point. It really did just move fast and make things. The first things it made were weird, but that was fine, and it failed and it hallucinated a ton, but it didn't really break anything. I don't know.
I believe in this case, total deaths attributable to ChatGPT are still zero. So notwithstanding all of the all the caterwauling, but yeah. So look, I think the AI industry in particular has a very acute version of the sort of challenge that you identified with, and I don't say this negatively, just an observation, which is that they're like in sort of a normal technology company, you've kind of got engineers who make products, and then you've got kind of salespeople or marketing people who sell them. In the AI companies, you have this third tier of the quote unquote researchers, right? And so which has worked out incredibly well. I mean, the researchers have done they've just done like amazing breakthroughs at these companies. But the handoff, there's not necessarily a clean handoff from the researchers to the market. And so it kind of raises this question of like, okay, like are these companies therefore kind of three segment companies where they have research and then they have product development and then they have go to market. And I think that's a really open issue. I mean, if Google's kind of a case study of this. You alluded to DeepMind, but even more broadly, Google developed the Transformer in 2017, and then they basically let it sit on the shelf, right? Because it was a research project. They didn't productize it. They were very worried about, from people I've talked to, they were very worried about the, brand issues and safety issues. Kind of all these. They had all these reasons to not productize it. I talked to somebody senior who was there at the time, and I asked them, when could you have had ChatGPT with GPT-4 level output if you had just gone flat out starting in 2017? And they said by 2019. Yeah. They already knew how to do it, and then they've now caught up, but it took an extra 5 years to catch up. And so I think a lot of these companies kind of have that challenge. Elon, as usual, of course, is provoking this question, as I'm sure you guys talked about. But he has now, within XAI, he's now collapsed. He's eliminated the distinction between research and product. Yeah. And so, of course, he's pushing this as hard as he can. And I think it's a good question for a lot of these other companies, kind of how hard they want to push on actually getting these things in fully productized form out to the market.
Yeah. On Elon's distinction, it feels like there is more research to be done, but it feels like we're entering like a new cycle of just focus on the engineering, focus on the deployment, the applications. Let's get all this technology out into the world. Let's reap all that benefit. And yes, there will be a different track of fundamental research that's happening somewhere, but it's really, really hard to predict. And so if you have something that's working, just double down and just go really aggressive on it. I'm wondering more on that, but also on Apple's strategy. It feels like Apple's been kind of like, people have been maligning them for missing the AI opportunity. And Tim Cook's just there on the earnings call being like, look, we acquired a couple small companies and
this year.
7 companies. But then it seems like they're taking more of like an American dynamism approach. Like there was news today in the Journal that they're investing $100 million in American manufacturing. They're certainly doing stuff. They're just not chasing the shiny tennis ball.
Headline $100 billion capex.
Right? So I'm wondering about your thoughts on when you have when you have a platform, how hard is it to resist chasing the new shiny object? Is that the right move, or are there any other things that you think Apple should be changing their strategy on?
Yeah, so look, Apple's always had this, very clearly defined strategy that, Steve and Tim, working together figured out a long time ago, which is, I forget the exact term, but it's something like basically they invest deeply into the core of what they do. They'll basically work internally on things for many years. They only actually release things when they feel like they're kind of fully baked.
Yeah.
Right. And so as a consequence, they have this thing where, and Tim says this, right? They're rarely first to market with new technologies. They're more often in the category of what Peter Thiel calls last to market. They'll come out whatever 3 years later, whatever 5 years later. There were tablets for years before the iPad. There were smartphones for years before the iPhone.
Folding phones. They're about to do a folding phone. It's like 10 years into that technology. But I'm sure if they do it, they'll hit it.
The last mover.
Yeah. Sorry.
The last mover. And I guess, what I would say is look, that clearly works if you're Apple, right?
Yeah.
And so it clearly works if you're Apple. But I would say there's a fine line between that strategy and simply becoming obsolete, right?
Yeah.
And so the problem is if you're not Apple and you don't have all the other kind of super strengths and kind of now the market position that Apple has, do you really want to be a company? If you're not Apple, do you really want to be a company that basically sits there and says, yeah, the world's moving and we're very deliberately not going to lean as hard as we can into it? And so I think there's a lot of survivorship bias in these kinds of strategy discussions where people look at the one company that's able to pull this off and they don't look at the 50 other companies that are in the graveyard. Because they didn't adapt. I mean, all the other smartphone companies when the iPhone came out, they were like, oh yeah, well we could do touch too, right? We'll just we'll get to it, right? And they're gone.
Yeah, what was it?
What do you
BlackBerry
think?
Bold, I remember it was like an iPhone knockoff.
What do you think? Right now people are variety of shareholders are annoyed at Apple around their reaction to AI, LLMs. John's annoyed around just like transcription generally, just like super basic stuff. But it doesn't feel like the core business is immediately threatened today. It feels like it's still on the horizon around these sort of like eyewear-based computing, potentially net new devices that we'll see from companies like OpenAI over time. But where do you like how real is the threat this year versus 10 years from today, and kind of what's your framework?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think the biggest ultimate danger is very clear, which is just like at what point do you not carry around a pane of glass in your hand called a phone, because other things have superseded it. And look, everything becomes obsolete at the point. So there will come some time in the future when we're not, carrying phones around, and we'll watch movies where people have phones, and we'll be like, yeah, look at how primitive they were, right? Because we'll have moved on to other things, and whether those things are eye-based or other kinds of wearables, or whether it's just kind of computing happening in the environment, or just entirely voice-based, or who knows what it is, but there will come a time when that happens. Is that time 3 years from now because there's like some huge breakthrough from some company that figures out the product that obsoletes the phone right away, or is that 20 years from now because the phone is just such a standard platform for everything that we do in our lives, and everything else kind of remains a peripheral to the phone? I mean, that's the game of elephants that's playing out there. Obviously, I think it's highly likely that we'll have a phone for a very long time.
Yeah.
Having said that, it is exciting that there are companies that are going directly at that challenge, and whoever cracks the code on that will be the next Apple. And by the way, that may in the fullness of time be Apple itself. They may be the company that figures that out.
Yeah, I remember being at a board meeting at Andreessen Horowitz maybe a decade ago or something, and Chris Dixon showed me the HoloLens. And I was like, okay, we're 1 year away from this being everywhere.
Yeah.
And I feel like today I'm still in the VR, it's definitely 1 year away. The next Quest I'm going to be wearing daily. And it feels like we're always there, but it does feel like Apple did a lot of work on the fundamental, pixel density of the resolution of the display. And then Meta's been doing a ton of work on just getting it light and affordable. Like, it feels closer than ever, but you always got to wait until you see the churn numbers until you really call the game, right?
Well, here's the other thing, but I think that's true. But you'd also say, I'm on the Meta board, so I'm kind of a dog in the hunt on this one. But like the Meta Ray-Ban glasses are a big hit.
Oh, totally.
Right, like they're a big. So I think we now have a form factor that we know works. For eye-based wearables. There's not VR, and then VR on top of that, but. Just the glasses, and then the glasses with camera, sort of integrated camera, integrated microphone, integrated speaker.
Yep.
That's a very interesting platform. The watch clearly works, by the way, which Apple, of course, has played a significant role in making happen. That now sells in huge volume.
Yeah.
So that's the second data point. And then, I think I think some form of AI pin is going to work.
Yep.
I also think headphones are going to get a lot more sophisticated, which is already happening.
Yep.
And so you do have these kind of data points coming out, and then look, the $1 trillion question ultimately is, are these peripherals to the phone?
Yeah.
Which is what they are today, or are these replacements for the phone? And I would say I think we have a lot of invention coming, both from new companies and from the incumbents who are going to try to figure that out.
Yeah, I always think about the value of like narrowing the aperture on these new technologies. Like with the Meta Ray-Bans, I feel like the fact that they aren't also trying to be a screen is actually a feature, not a bug. And I always go back to the iPhone. Like, it was first and foremost a phone. And people bought it because it could make calls, and then it could make text messages, and then it was an iPod. But do you disagree with that, please?
Well, you guys, I don't know. You guys might be too young. The first iPhone actually was a bad phone.
How so?
Don't you guys? For the first 2 years, it couldn't reliably make phone calls.
I had like the third one, and a friend had one, but I feel like it was still like people were carrying cell phones, and that was at least the expectation. But yeah, I mean, I guess you're right.
For the first 2 years, it was a classic Apple story, because for the first 2 years, the thing couldn't reliably make phone calls, and then it turned out there was an issue with the antenna and with how you held it, and there was the famous Steve Jobs email.
Yeah, you hold it, and you would disconnect it.
You could basically brick the device.
Based on how you held it, and somebody emailed. This is when Steve would respond to emails from random people, and somebody emailed Steve saying, "If I hold the phone this way, it doesn't make phone calls." And he's like, "Well, don't hold it that way."
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
so even there, it was like, and people forget it took like 5 years for the iPhone to find its footing. It took like 2 years to get the thing. I remember also the original iPhone didn't have broadband data.
Yeah.
It was on the old 2G. It was called the AT&T Edge network, so it didn't have broadband data, and then of course it didn't have an app store. Right, it was completely locked down. Right,
so the challenges for Apple now is that people are so used to perfection with the device that launching a product that isn't perfect, like, is embarrassing, right? Like, you look at the Vision Pro, and it's like, well, the battery's big. Steve would have hated this, right? How he never would have shipped this, and that being constrained and not being able to innovate because you're tied to this like impossible standard of being on whatever generation 17 of the iPhone and perfecting every element is a real challenge.
So I would say there's a corollary to that. One of the things I've observed over the years is I think technology products become obsolete at the precise moment they become perfect. And to your point, what I mean by perfect basically is like, it's like the perfect idealized complete product. Like, it does everything you could possibly ever imagine. Everything a customer could imagine, everything you as the technology developer can imagine, it's absolutely perfect. And there's been tons of examples of this over the last 50 years, where it's like the absolute perfect permanent. It seems to be the permanent version of that product, and then it just turns out that's actually the point of obsolescence, because it means creativity is no longer being applied right into that platform. You're just like, there's just nothing else to do. You're just like, you're done. Right, the product has been realized, and then the cycle is what happens. To your point, the cycle is other people come in with completely different approaches, completely different kinds of products that are broken and weird in all kinds of ways, but are fundamentally different. And so that is one of the time-honored traditions. And one of the things you could say about Tim is his willingness to kind of break the mold of Apple only ships perfect products, but being willing to ship the Vision Pro shows a level of determination to kind of stay in the innovation game.
I like that,
which I think is very positive.
Yeah. That's great.
Updated thinking on open source. Since we last talked, there's a lot that's been
OpenAI is an open source company
yesterday.
again.
Yes, OpenAI is open again.
Yes.
Yeah, look, very encouraging. A year ago, I was very, I was getting very distressed about whether open source AI was going to be allowed. Right, it was even going to be legal. And I think we're basically through that at this point. We're through that in the U.S. We'll see about the rest of the world. And then look, the U.S.-China thing is obviously a big deal, but I think it's been net positive for the world that China has been so enthusiastic about open source AI coming out of China, which has been great. And then look, OpenAI leaning hard into this, and releasing what they did is I think fantastic, both because of what they released, which is great, but also just the fact that they are now willing to do that. And then Elon reconfirmed overnight that he's going to, open source, start open sourcing previous versions of Grok. Cool. And so, yeah, so we seem to be in the timeline where open source AI is going to happen. Right now, I think what you would say is it kind of lags the leading edge proprietary implementations by, 6 months or something like that. Yep. But I think that, that's a good, if that's the status quo that continues, I think that would be a very good status quo.
What are the rough edges that we need to kind of sand down when we're thinking about Chinese open source models specifically? Is it we need to do some fine tuning on top of them to add back free speech, or do we need to watch for back doors, say it's phone and home, if it runs into this specific thing? Like the Chinese open source thing, it was remarkable because I feel like it really does accelerate the pace of innovation because everyone gets to see, oh, this is how reasoning works. I think that's great. At the same time, it made me much more appreciative of AI safety research and capability research and actually being able to interpret what's going on and say definitively, this model is going to behave weird in this weird way, like the Manchurian candidate problem. We haven't found any of that, but it certainly seems like something we'd want to keep an eye on. But from your perspective, like what are the risks that we need to be aware of going into a world where China is really pushing hard into open source?
Yeah, there's two, and you identified them, but let's talk about both of them. So the phone home thing is the easy one, which is you can put you can packet sniff a network and you can tell when the thing is doing that, and plus you can go in the code and you can see when it's doing that, and so you can validate that that's either happening or not happening, and I think that that's important. But I think people are gonna figure that out. You can kind of gate that problem practically. Yeah. The bigger issue is we have this term in the field right now called open weights, and open weights is a loaded term. It uses the open term from open source, but of course with open source the thing is you can actually read the code. With open weights you have just a giant file full of numbers, as you said, that you can't really interpret. And then what you don't have, what most of the open source open weights models don't have, including DeepSeek specifically, what they don't have is they don't have open data, right? Or open corpus, right? So you can't actually see the training data that went into them. And of course, most of the people building models are kind of obscuring what that training data is in various ways. And so when you get an open weight model, the good news is the software source is open. The good news is you can run it on your machine. You can verify that it doesn't phone home, but you don't actually know what's happening inside the weights. And so I think that is going to be a bigger and bigger issue, which is like, okay, how the thing behaves, like, yeah, what has it actually been trained to do? And what restrictions or directives has it been given in the training, that are embedded in the weights that you need to be able to see. I would say this is coming up as sort of, I would say, a global issue, which, we worry about when these models come from China. Other countries worry when these models come from the U.S., right? Which is right. So one of the phrases you'll hear when you talk to people kind of outside the U.S. is kind of this phrase people are kicking around, which is "not my weights, not my culture."
Okay.
Right. Or by the way, for that matter, not my weights, not my laws. Yeah. Right. Which is like, okay, like what actually is this thing going to do? Yeah. Right. And to your point, the Chinese models, for example, might never criticize communism or something. Sure. I can tell you, the American models have all kinds of constraints also. Yeah. Right. Implemented, usually by a very specific kind of person in a very specific location in the U.S. Yep. And so, I think that this is a general issue, and we're going to have to see basically people's tolerance levels being willing to run open weights models where they don't fundamentally have access to the data, and then correspondingly, I think what we'll see is more open source developers also doing open corpus, open data, so you can see what's actually in them. Yeah.
Obviously, open source is very important in terms of just distributing intelligence broadly, giving people the ability to run their own models and really fine tune them and have control. There's also the big push just to make frontier models and high capability models free. One model is you charge for the premium, you give the free away. It's a freemium model. That's what we're seeing at most of the labs right now. There's also this kind of specter on the horizon of potentially putting ads in LLMs and what that would do to the world. Jordy got in a little dust up with Mark Cuban on the timeline, deciding whether or not it would be a net good to put advertising in LLMs, what might happen that might be bad there. What do you have a take?
My point broadly was that ads have been an incredible way to make a variety of products and services online free, and just saying like default, just no ads would potentially be incredibly destructive. But curious your framework.
Yeah, so I should start by saying, like, whenever I personally use an internet service, I always try to buy the premium version of it that doesn't have ads, right? And so if I can like live personally inside an ad-free universe and pay for it, like that's great. And I'll freely admit, whatever level of hypocrisy or incongruence, kind of results from that. But
no, the point is choice. The point is choice.
Well, the point is exactly what you said. It's affordability. So the problem is, if you really want to get to $1 billion and then 5 billion people, you can't do that with a paid offering. Like it just you at any sort of reasonable price point, it's just not possible. The global per capita GDP is not high enough for that. People don't have enough income for that, at least today. And so if you want to get to if you want the Google search engine or the Facebook social app or the whatever AI frontier AI model to be available to 5 billion people. For free, you need to have a business model. You need to have an indirect business model, and ads is the obvious one. And so I do think if you take some principle stand against ads, I think you unfortunately are also taking a stand against broad access, just in the way the world works today. And then look, the other really salient question is, the same question that the companies like Google and Facebook have been dealing with for a long time, which is, are ads purely destructive or negative to the user experience, or are they actually, if done properly, are they actually either neutral or even positive, right? And this was something that Google, I think, to their credit, figured out very early, which is a well-targeted ad at a specifically relevant point in time is actually content. It actually enhances the experience, right? Because it's the obvious case. You're searching on a product. There's an ad. You can buy the product. You click to buy the product. That was actually a useful piece of functionality. And so, can you have ads or other things that are like ads or look like ads? Different kinds of referrals, mechanisms or whatever. Can you have them in such a way that they're actually additive to the product experience? And you could imagine, just like with search and with social networking, you could imagine lots of examples of that. Yeah. People will, they'll whine or howl about that in lots of different ways. But I think, I think that hasn't been a bad outcome overall. And I think that I think it's entirely possible that that's what happens with these models as well.
Yeah.
So, kind of similar kind of question. What should be legal? Kind of trying to create legal frameworks on a number of issues with AI. There's been a number of IP cases that have been working their way through the courts. What can labs use to train models, et cetera? There's been some good outcomes recently. Sam also was talking about how a lot of people are using AI as like a confidant, like a friend, things like that. And he mentioned that currently your chats are not privileged. They can be used in a lawsuit or other situations. How optimistic are you that our sort of legal system in the U.S. can get some of these issues right, where maybe it can't just be total free markets, kind of lawless, whatever goes?
So in the case of training data, I think that there's a bunch of these copyright, kind of lawsuits happening right now. There's, the big New York Times OpenAI one, and there's, been a bunch of others. I think for that particular problem, my guess is that problem ultimately has to be solved through legislation. It's ultimately a legislative question. The reason is because it goes to the nature of copyright law itself, which is legislation, and of course, the content industry is already claiming that, of course, using copyrighted data to train, without permission and without paying is sort of, they believe illegal on its face, due to violation of copyright law. The counter argument to that, which we believe is, well, it's not copying, right? There's a distinction between training and copying. Just like in the real world, there's a distinction between reading a book and copying the book, as a person. And so there's going to need, I think, the courts are trying to grapple with that. There's a whole bunch of cases. There's jurisdictional questions. Probably ultimately Congress is going to have to figure out figure out an answer on that. And by the way, the president has kind of, thrown down that gauntlet in his, I think, the speech he gave last week or 2 weeks ago, where he said that, Washington probably needs to deal with that as an issue. So that's one. On the privacy thing, I think that one feels like it's a Supreme Court thing. To me, it feels like that's the kind of issue set at the Supreme Court. And in other words, like whether, for example, your chat transcripts are considered your property and whether they're protected against, warrantless search and seizure. Mm-hmm. And the observation I would make there is, if you look at the march of technology over time, so the Constitution has like very clear, Fourth, Fifth Amendments, very specific rights around the things that are yours, such as, your home, being in your home. By the way, the thoughts in your head, right? That the government can't just like come in and take. They can't just come in and search your house without a warrant. Mm-hmm. they can't like, put you in a jail cell and beat you until you fess up. Like, there are, we have constitutional protections against the government being able to basically, take information, fundamentally, as well as possessions. And then basically what happens is every time there's a new technology that creates a new kind of sort of, thing that you own, thing that's yours, thing that you would consider to be private, thing that you wouldn't want the government to be able to take without a warrant. Out of the gate, law enforcement agencies just naturally go try to get those things because they're ways to solve crimes, and it feels like that's a legal thing to do. And then basically the courts come in later and they rule one way or the other and basically say no, that actually is also a thing that is protected against warrantless, for example, warrantless search. Warrantless wiretapping. And so I feel like this is the latest of probably, 20 of those over the last 100 years. I don't know which way it'll go, but I think it's going to be a key thing because as people are already telling these models, lots of things that they're, that are very personal.
Okay, lightning round, quick questions. We're letting you get out of here in a couple minutes. We're in this age of spiky intelligence. Models are great at some things and then terrible at others. Where are you actually getting value out of AI right now? Where is it falling down for you? How are you using AI day to day?
Yeah, so I have two kind of, barbell approach. One is for serious stuff. I love the deep research capabilities.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this in a bunch of models, but like the ability to basically say, I'm interested in this topic. And then I just felt like write me a book, and I'm kind of hoping for the longest book I can get. I always tell it like go longer, more sophisticated. But the leading edge models now they're getting up to like 30-page PDFs, that are like completely well formulated, basically long form essays, with just like incredible richness and depth. If it's 30 pages today, I'm sort of crossing my fingers that it'll get to 300 pages coming up here in the next few years. And so I'm able to basically have the thing generate enormous amounts of reading material with just like, I think, incredible richness and depth and complexity. And then on the other side of the barbell is humor. And I've posted some of these to my X feed over the last couple of years, but I think these models are already much funnier than people give them credit for.
Really?
I think they're actually quite highly entertaining. A while ago, I posted.
Specific formats
like prompts, or is it just chatting back and forth?
Be Marc Andreessen, that format.
To take a dip in my pool in my office.
They're really good. So they're really good at green text. That works really well. But the for some reason, the ones I find hysterical are I have it write screenplays, for like TV shows or plays or movies. I posted, I had it write a new season of the HBO Silicon Valley, set 10 years later.
Yep.
And I had it write like I had it write like 10 scripts for a complete season. And of course I just said, make it like Silicon Valley, except, it's happening it's in 2021 at kind of peak woke. And I thought it was just, I think it's just, I'll sit there at 2 a.m. and just like laughing my ass off at how funny this thing is. And so I think these things are actually already like extremely funny. They're extremely entertaining when they're used in that way. And I do enjoy that a lot. And I generate a lot of those that I don't post.
Stay in the group chats.
It's probably a good idea. Exactly.
They're your property.
Yeah. Hopefully the Fourth Amendment holds on these.
Yeah.
That's great. I have one last question.
Go for it, and then I've got one more.
How do you get a job as a venture capitalist in 2025?
So look, the best way to do it is to have a track record early as somebody who is like in the loop specifically on new product development. And so somebody who, be like deeply in the trenches. At one of these new companies in one of these spaces, participate in the creation of a great new product and a great new company, and really demonstrate that you know how to do that. There are great VCs who have not done that, but I think that is sort of a foundational skill set, for working with the kinds of founders that you want to work with, who are going to want you to have, kind of very interesting things to say on that. As I think that, still the best way to do it.
Yeah, like feel the growth, immerse yourself in the growth, the aggressive growth environment, and then you'll be able to identify it when you see it from afar.
Yeah, that's right. Jordy.
Last question for me. State of M&A in your mind, how are you advising, companies where you're on the board or just the portfolio broadly around what they should expect now and in the near future?
You mean in terms of whether you can get things approved? Or
basically.
Yes. So look, approval is not a slam dunk. There was I just saw there was a medical device company this morning, where the acquisition was not allowed by the FTC. So, look, there is still scrutiny. It's obviously a very different political regime in Washington, but this is not by their own statements, this is not an administration that believes in total laissez-faire M&A, and it definitely wants to, in their view, maintain a very healthy level of market competition.
How many do you expect? Do you expect certain companies to be negatively impacted by the Figma story, right? You have this deal gets blocked, successful, IPO. Lena Khan is taking a victory lap. Many people were responding and joking, saying, Lena cuts off the arm of a pianist and they endure and can create a masterpiece. And then, and so I expect, and then you look at the example with, Roomba, I think it was, where Roomba had a deal with Amazon, it was blocked and
fell apart.
And the company has just been in shambles ever since. So my concern is that people look at Figma and say, you should be independent, you just figure it out.
Nothing can go wrong.
Yes. Yeah, Ms. Khan taking a victory lap was very disconcerting, and for exactly the reason you said, which is survivorship bias, right? Which is you pick the one that worked out, and then it's the airplane, the red dots, the airplane meme. Yep. You ignore the 50 that are in the ground that you've never heard of, and so that was very disconcerting because that it's sort of the central planning fallacy, which is like we make centrally planned economic decisions. We have one example, it's like in Europe, it's like the bottle caps actually don't fall off the bottle, right? Like, it works. Right? It's like, okay, but do you want to live in an economic regime in which the government is dictating bottle cap design? The answer is clearly no. Because the downside consequences.
Or even looking at that, the Chinese model, which is, people can say they're picking winners, but to get to maybe picking a winner, you have this intense bloodbath of competition where, teams need to rise to the top and sort of prove themselves before they get any of that real, meaningful state benefit.
Yeah, that's right. And so you just have this adverse selection survivorship bias thing where you don't pay attention to all the collateral damage. So I do think that mentality is like super dangerous. And so look, I think companies just have to be very thoughtful about this, both acquirers and the acquirees. The big thing is if you're selling a company, like you just need to anticipate that you might not get it through, and if you don't, they're like, okay, number one, is there like a big enough breakup fee, right? Are you going to get paid for the the damage that you're going through, and how is that structured on the one hand, and then two is look, do you have the kind of company culture that's going to be able to withstand that? And is your business strong enough to be able to get through that? And it is a real risk and something worth taking very seriously.
Yeah, and that's why it felt emotional. We were at NICE last week. It felt emotional. That the Figma team was able to effectively just restart the business and say we're taking this all the way. So if you talk, way to think about it, if you talk to any really successful company, what they'll tell you is over the years we had these crucible moments in which we almost died, right? But we pulled together and we pulled it off, and then that became one of these central kind of mythical events in the history of the company that we always refer to, and my God, we got through that, and we're so strong and tough, and we've been forged in fire, and now we can do anything. And it's that's great. And then there's 50 other companies that hit those crucible moments, blew up, and died. Right. And so, it's all of the quote lessons learned on this stuff. They're all conditional on survival. Yeah. And so these things need to be taken incredibly seriously, which the great CEOs do.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining. We'll let you get back to your day. We already kept you 5 minutes over. Next time we have to book 5 hours because this is fantastic. I got 10% of the way through. 24-hour
TBPN.
Yeah, we would love to have you again.
Marathon.
This is a lot of fun. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon, Mark. Have a great day. Bye.
Cheers. Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
We're breaking down the X's and O's of the GPT-5 launch today. GPT-5 launched from OpenAI. We have Sam Altman, the founder, CEO. He briefly got cut from the team in November of 2023, but he's back leading the team for the 2024-2025 seasons. He seems healthy. He's doing great today. He went on at 10 a.m. to break down the launch of GPT-5. He has a couple of key plays in his playbook, in his arsenal. He's got a solid ground game. Lots of quick posts hitting the timeline, probably in lowercase. Then he might air it out with a couple 1,000-word essay, We've seen him do this before. It's a bit of a Hail Mary. Maybe AG has a couple thousand days away. Maybe we're in the soft singularity, but he's very strong there with the long post when he needs to be. It's up his sleeve if he needs it. Then he can also pull out the vague posting. He was doing this last night, posted a picture of the Death Star. No one knows what it means. Maybe it was taking a shot at the Doomers who are on the defense today. So he's also known for driving supercars. That lets him get to the office faster. He's saving time and money. You can save time and money by going to ramp.com. Easy to use, corporate cards, bill pay, and accounting, and a whole lot more all in one place. And so he also gave, apparently, this is a rumor, he gave every OpenAI employee who's been with the company for more than 2 years, $1.5 million. A lot of people say $1.5 million, that's not enough for a big house in San Francisco, but it is enough for a supercar. So that's probably why he picked that number. And that's what the OpenAI team will be doing with that money. They'll be buying Aston Martin Valkyries, Pagani Huayras, McLaren Sabres, for Ferrari Daytona SP3s. They can get a Koenigsegg, Gemera. They could get a Singer, DLS, or a Bugatti Veyron. It would have to be used. They could also get the Bentley Bacalar. There's only 12 of those ever made. It's an open top 2-seater roadster. It's coach built. So that's going to run your 1.5 million, but that's perfect. You just got the 1.5 million bonus. So put it to work, spend it all in one place on a car. This is financial advice. Yes, exactly. Then you got Greg Brockman. He's joining at noon. He's extremely well rested. He's actually coming off a sabbatical right now. That's very exciting. He should be injury-free for the rest of the season. He cut his teeth at MIT, and then he got drafted by Stripe in 2010. Microsoft tried to do a trade deal during the 2023 chaotic trade window that opened up post Sam Altman ouster, but he stuck with the OpenAI team, and now he's president of the company. Then you got Mark Chen. He's coming on at 11:30 today. He's the chief research officer. The rumor is that he turned out a maxed out contract to head the Meta Llamas, but he's sticking with the OpenAI team. He was an MIT undergrad, also worked at Jane Street before joining OpenAI in 2018. Then we got Sarah Fryer coming on the show at 12:30. She's the CFO of OpenAI. It's her job to find bank accounts big enough to fill all the cash they're raising. It's a tough job. You got to find, this bank account, will it hold 10 figures? Will it hold 11 figures? Will it hold 12 figures? Like,
fit a lot of cash in this one.
Exactly. She's also going to be defining the non-GAAP metrics that will be catnip for Ben Thompson in just a few years. We're excited to talk to her about how she's measuring the success and the health of their business. Obviously, it's not just revenue. It's not just top line, bottom line. We're going to want to know about queries. We're going to want to know about DAUs, all those non-GAAP metrics. That's where people are going to be tracking when IPO day comes, hopefully soon. And then we also have Brad Lightcap. He's joining at 2:35. He entered the league as an investment banker. Let's give it up for the investment bankers. They don't get enough credit around here, but we love the investment bankers. Then he got drafted by Y Combinator before joining OpenAI as CFO in 2018. Now he's the chief operating officer. And then we have Max Schwarzer. He's in charge of post-training, fine-tuning these models, getting them into the fighting performance to put on a display of authority on GPT-5 launch day. Now, let's flip it over to the defense. They're going up against the timeline. They're going up against the vibe checks. We got the Doomers. The Doomers, they're led by Eliezer Yudkowsky. Admittedly, everyone knows this. No one debates this. The Doomers have had a terrible season. But you'd expect to see at least a few Hail Marys about GPT-5 creating bioweapons thrown up on the timeline today. Probably won't be bangers, probably won't get 1,000 likes, but you'll be seeing them here and there, mostly in the replies. We've also seen some Doomers talking about GPT-5 being available to every government employee. And Eliezer had some harsh words about that. Don't give the keys to Sam Altman. Don't give the keys to the government to OpenAI. He was upset about that. But in general, the Doomers not putting much of a fight up today. Then you got Claude. Interesting. Claude was caught playing for the wrong team earlier this week. Anthropic, they're on defense today, but we saw them take out OpenAI's key pinch hitter, Claude. The Claude Code API was playing for the OpenAI team, but they shut that down, and Claude is no longer pinch hitting for OpenAI. Then you got the Elon stands. The ground game's going to be there. It's going to be it's going to be strong. The Elon stands are going to be tracking the benchmarks relentlessly. We know XAI loves to benchmarks, and all the Elon stands are going to be calling out GPT-5 for any misaligned benchmarks. If they fail humanity's last exam, it's over. It's over. They'll also toss up the occasional unhinged conspiracy theory. Moving on, Gemini. The betting lines have shifted big time. People thought Gemini was out of the game. They're so back. They're up. Polymarket has Gemini at 75% chance of being the best model towards the end of the month. This is of course based on the LM Arena, more vibes-based benchmark, but Gemini will probably be quiet today. They usually don't try and front-run press releases. They usually try and sit back, let the model speak for themselves, let the API credits work their way through the latest YC Demo Day batch, and get the product into the hands of people. And so expect to see a big, glossy conference in a couple weeks. Demoing Gemini 3 should be a good rebuttal from the Geminis. Then you got the Meta Llamas. Zuck's been on a poaching spree. He's rebuilding the team during the offseason. Now he has a stacked roster and he's ready to go duke it out, but no one knows exactly what's going to be in the playbook. Is he going to go consumer? Is he going to go API? Is he going to turn into a hyperscaler? We don't know, but we know they got a stacked team. They got Alex Wang. They got Nat Friedman. They got Daniel Gross. They got tons and tons of other researchers. They've been rating every other team, completely reset the salary cap for the league, and it's been an absolute clinic in terms of recruiting over there at Llama. Then you got the final benchmark, ARC AGI. This benchmark stands. GPT-5 couldn't get past this defense. And ARC AGI, sitting there right in the end zone, just swatting him down all day. You think we're super intelligence around the corner? ARC AGI denied. Tyler, give us the update on ARC AGI. Where does everything stand? How'd GPT-5 do? Does it matter? Should we care about ARC AGI? We love the team behind them, but is it an important benchmark? Should we be tracking it today?
So there's ARC AGI V1 and V2, right?
Okay.
On both
and
of them.
V3.
V3, I actually don't know if
no one's even tested V3
Yeah, no
yet.
one's even really close there.
But how are we doing on V1?
V1, GPT-5 is at 65.7. Unfortunately, that's going to be 1% just short of Grok 4, 66.7. Okay, ARC AGI 2.
The Elon stands are going to be going wild with that.
ARC AGI 2,
okay.
9.9%.
9.9%.
Grok 4, 16%.
16%.
So absolute kind of brutal, ARC AGI mogging.
Rough showing.
Some people have accused Grok 4 of being slightly benchmaxed.
Yes.
this is,
They might have a team working on it. What are the pros and cons? We know the cons of benchmarking, of benchmaxing. You're overfitting on something that might not actually drive consumer value. It might not actually solve real world problems. It might not increase DAUs or revenue or ARR or anything that really matters. It might not even get us closer to super intelligence. Give me the counter argument. Why is benchmaxing good?
The bull case for benchmaxing.
The bull case for benchmarking,
Okay.
Benchmaxing. Break it down for me.
Yeah, so I think the idea is basically, this is almost like a non-AGI pilled kind of take, right?
Okay.
So if you don't have a super general intelligence,
yep.
Your ability to benchmax basically proves your ability to solve some kind of specific task. So there's this thing about the gas station
going
benchmark.
spiky.
Yeah.
It's called getting spiky.
Adding more spikes to the spiky intelligence.
Yeah, I think it was Rune who had this tweet about the gas station benchmark.
Yep.
Right. I don't care if he said something like, I don't care about AI solving gas stations if it has the gas station benchmark, something like that. But the idea is if making the gas station benchmark.
Rune said, my bar for AGI is an AI that can learn to run a gas station for a year without a team of scientists collecting the gas station data set in capital letters.
Yeah, and then my take is basically, I don't care how they got to the, I don't care how they made it run the gas station. I care how fast
that
it
it
gets
runs
here.
it. If we can run the gas station with AI, that's
if you
good
have
enough.
a team who's your benchmaxing team that just proves that like if you have some task that's like really important that you want to get done, they can just figure it out. So it's like RL for business. This is like the same thing, RL for law. All of these like
this is what
specific verticals. If
Nir
you can
Moradi
benchmark
is
super
doing
well,
this with thinking machines,
exactly.
right? Like RL for businesses. Come into your organization, understand the most valuable business processes out there that could potentially be RL'd against, that could be turned into a benchmark, and then bench hacked. Because I don't care if you're hacking, if I have translate this type of document to this type of document for my business. If you can do it with 100% accuracy, I don't care that you bench hacked it.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like benchmarks right now are not like economically valuable. Like if you're really that much better at MMLU, it's like are you producing that much value?
Yes.
Probably not. But if you make some new benchmark that's your tax benchmark, I think Anthropic just released that fairly recently.
Oh sure.
That's like I don't care if you bench max on that
as
if
long
it does way better.
If it does the taxes,
because then
it's
gonna do the task.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about what does it say that it feels like OpenAI seems capable of bench hacking? It seems like they've opted not to. Is that because bench hacking has the risk of giving you negative aura? Because if you're accused and found guilty of bench hacking, it often reveals that you're not building this one beautiful, super intelligence to rule them all.
Yeah, I think it's also like maybe we're just looking at the wrong benchmarks. Like maybe there's a bunch of like interesting benchmarks about like there's this one I really like. It's the Minecraft benchmark where you have to like build. You like give it some castle and how good it looks. Or there's the one you always see about the unicorn.
Yeah.
That's
what's that?
It's so you use this like math package that does like graphs and stuff, but you ask it to draw a unicorn.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Those are really good because it kind of shows the creativity, stuff like that.
Walk us through TBPN bench. And what we will be benchmarking the AIs against going forward. Have you heard about this?
Reps of 225.
That would be close, but it's difficult because the humanoids kind of change that, and you can just use a normal actuator. This is truly for a large language model. You feed in our data set. We have a public data set, a private data set, presumably at some point. But walk us through TBPN bench.
Yeah, so I'm yet to try this on GPT-5. I don't think it's out yet like for public use. At least I don't have it. But I can tell some of the questions, right? So the first one, I have this picture of a horse. You have to guess the breed.
Yep.
So let me see. I think I don't want to say it in case GPT-5 is listening, but it may or may not be a Caspian horse.
Okay. And it's failing right now.
O3 is failing.
O3 is failing.
4.0 is failing. I haven't tried every model.
We got to try Grok and Gemini.
We're getting it all out. Yeah.
Force identification. This seems extremely hackable, but at the very least, if we get one scientist to go off and collect the horse data set and then bench hack it, I think we will have done our job.
Yeah, so that's the first question.
Yes.
The second one is I have two pictures of the before and after of this guy, and it's which peptide did he take to achieve this body transformation?
Yep.
So it fails there.
It fails there. So you have a data set of what peptide does what to the human body? Where'd you find that?
Well, Wikipedia has a lot of this stuff.
Okay. You would think it'd be able to cheat this around with O3. Just reason who is this person? Go look up what they've said they've taken, and then boom, you have the answer.
Well, at first with O3, when I was prompting it, I would like save the photo, but then it would have the metadata the file name would be like Caspian horse or something.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
and then the third one.
The third one, I pass in an audio file of a car revving. Has to pick which one.
It has to identify the car.
The car, yeah.
From the engine note.
From the engine.
And it's not doing it currently.
No.
Okay.
Getting it wrong.
This is a good benchmark.
Humanity's real last exam.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think those are pretty solid. I have some more. Obviously, I don't want to make them public in case anyone's going to try to benchmark this.
Of course.
We'll see. Hopefully,
it's funny because I was mentioning the other day this app that my dad had of tracking like you just set your phone up and it just automatically detects which birds are in your backyard.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this has to be extremely solvable. It's just something that it reveals the lack of like general intelligence when you have to go and collect the horse data set, which should just be out there, or the engine note data set, which should just be out there. But clearly we are in the age of go in RL on the individual problem, and we are looking at like the power law of capabilities. Knowledge retrieval is clearly a $12 billion a year market that consumers will pay for. That will probably grow significantly. And then health and therapy and shopping and all the other features that Fiji Simo laid out in her post. This is kind of like, what will be RL'd against, because those are key pockets of value in the consumer economy. And the same thing will happen in the business economy. But in the B2B context, you'll probably see an individual startup building on top of an API. But even then, most of the model platforms offer kind of RL as a service, fine tunes as a service, something where if you're starting to spend tens of millions of dollars, they will do some customization on top of the model. So that could be the regime for the next few years as we go into this, like, instead of like this centralizing AI force, there's only one company. There's actually like a Cambrian explosion of a ton of companies doing a bunch of different things. We are joined in person by Rahul Sonwalkar. Did I say that correctly?
That's perfect.
And he is here because we are crowning him the king of the application layer. Never talk champion. Down on the future first ballot Hall of Famer. They said, don't build a rapper. Don't build a rapper. You're going to get steamrolled. He didn't listen, and he's built a beautiful business at Julius.
It's a good product, sir.
It's a good product,
When asked if value would accrue to the model layer or the application layer, he said it's a good product, sir.
Why not both?
Why not both? Product, sir.
What was your reaction to GPT-5? Is it going to make your life easier? It's not going to put you out of business, right?
It's not putting us out of business. It's making our product better. It's basically making every AI application layer product better. Also, it's half the cost of O3, so it's much cheaper. So it helps your margins. It means you can.
Don't say that out loud though, because you don't want your customers to ask for a 50% discount, right?
Well, so we pass on the savings to our customers,
you do? Okay.
And what we do is we have the model generate more tokens, think for longer, and then produce better results.
Because we're still in the era of just let's get the best possible result. Let's just actually like. I don't know. Do you have a rough benchmark of like cost per task? Like if I want to crunch our analytics across, look at the trends on our views on X, YouTube, Instagram. We have a bunch of data sources. Sometimes they're in spreadsheets. Sometimes they can be linked. I export those all. I have a bunch of CSVs. Maybe I put them in a database. I link it up to Julius. And then I want to do an analysis. That could be a couple hours of a data analyst's time. That's going to be hundreds of dollars, even at the low end, probably thousands of dollars for like a simple analysis, just on a opportunity cost basis for an individual employee. How much are you thinking it should cost for like the modern frontier best model with the most thinking? How much should that cost on inference?
So there's a couple of ways to think about this. The way we think about this is how much would it cost for you to have a data scientist or a data analyst for every one of your employees, your operations team, your finance team, your marketing team, your product team.
It would pretty much bankrupt every company.
Well, I don't think we can hear you through that. You gotta take that off.
All right.
You still have a job. The spacemen are out. We're not going to space today. Although Firefly did IPO up 36%. If you didn't see the news, very good news. Firefly stock surges 34% in debut. Congrats to everyone over there.
And I love the physical newspaper.
We love the physical newspaper.
You got to do that.
Yeah, we're maxing. We read the Wall Street Journal. Today is a special day. It's Friday, so it's the mansion section.
We're news maxing here.
How many pools do you have?
We're news maxing.
Right now I have
Zero right now. Well, you gotta, because the new thing is having two pools, a pool for every season. People are increasingly getting both indoor and outdoor swimming pools. So get on Zillow.
Zillow maxing here.
Okay. Anyway, you were telling me how much. So it seems like most of the application layer will be productivity tools, a la Slack, a la like ADIO, our Salesforce, our CRM partner, or something where you're doing like seat-based pricing almost. Maybe there's consumption-based pricing, but you're kind of distributing the cost. You're making everyone slightly more productive, and you're charging on the order of tens or hundreds of dollars per employee per month, something like that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just slightly more productive, but it's also like getting insights when you need them, right? Sunday night, you're prepping for a big meeting on Monday. You can't reach out to your data analyst and get your insights in that moment. And so the convenience of having an AI that can help you with that is just invaluable.
Yeah, it's going from 0x to 1x engineer all over the org. We've seen this with a lot of the vibe coding tools with Figma and adding like vibe coding to that product. You've taken designers and you've given them the ability to write just like a little bit of code, and that's really helpful. And you're doing that for data scientists and not just data scientists, but actual like business operations people who probably would be intimidated by an IPython notebook, presumably.
Exactly.
Nailed it. Okay, I want everyone's feedback on my take. Vittorio had this post. He said, Sam Altman's doing the Apple stance TM, it's over. And I think that the reaction to GPT-5 yesterday was interesting because there's a lot of people that say like it's better model, like it's cheaper, it's good, it solves, it moves the ball down the field. Sir. It's a good model, sir. But I think people were mostly reacting to, they had expectations of superintelligence. They had expectations of God in a box. There's been so much rhetoric around the step up from GPT-3 to GPT-4 was insane.
Like 5 just felt like a big number, and it felt like we'd be discovering and novel science.
Totally, yeah.
And we're not quite.
Everyone was expecting like a binary qualitative jump where, everyone recognized that, when ChatGPT dropped, we passed the Turing test, and the next hurdle is like, I don't know, maybe super intelligence, whatever that means. Massive, you just hit it with a prompt, it just solves everything. It does everything. Every other startup, it kills all the wrappers. Like the expectations were just so high that it was hard to match. So even though there were a bunch of solid improvements, and remember the number one thing that I was asking for was just like, get rid of the model picker. I actually was playing around with GPT-5 yesterday, and I was really happy that I was able to say, hey, think about this, and I didn't have to go to the model picker, and it just kicked off a reasoning chain. It was great, got me a great answer.
But power users so far are very upset about this. They want the model picker back.
True.
Is what I've been seeing generally.
But that always happens with these consumer products. Like sure. I remember when, anytime something would switch to an algorithmic feed, all the people that were like, no, I perfectly curated my list of, this happened in YouTube. Like back in the day, like the default YouTube view used to just be your subscriptions. And so you would never see a video unless you subscribe to that person. Yep. Terrible for discovery. But all the hardcore YouTubers loved it because if I put a YouTube video out, I know that my audience is going to see it. Now I got to duke it out in the algorithm.
You actually had distribution.
It was more like a
having
Substack.
To earn it every single time.
Yeah, exactly. And the same thing happened. I remember there were like protest groups on Facebook when they launched the news feed. It's like the most dominant product of all time. It's like incredibly valuable.
There's protests right now on Reddit. People that miss.
Oh yeah, I want the old
4.0, 4.5.
Yeah, I think those voices will be like personally. I think people will get over it pretty quickly, and I don't think that those particular that small cohort of like the chattering class will be like they'll get over it. And
the clanker economy is in shambles.
What do you have for me, Tyler?
I don't know if I agree with that. There was that whole funeral for Claude 3. Did you see this?
No, oh yeah.
So
I think that in person, right?
Yeah, it's like for I think some people like really like the personality of certain models.
Yeah.
And those are like, it's not just intelligence. It's like how it like talks to you.
Yeah.
And if people make like some kind of connection with that.
Yeah.
I think it's.
How many people attended that funeral?
Versus
how many DAUs?
It looked like a lot, but
versus
it was more
DAUs.
of a party.
Yeah, I guess it was a party.
But as a percentage of the 100 million DAUs of these apps, like where are we? Like 1%? No. It was like 40 people probably, right? Like there were protests at Facebook HQ when they rolled out, like people went to Facebook HQ and were like, bring back the old feed. And it's like, yeah, now we're 2 decades into the algorithmic newsfeed, and it's the most dominant consumer social app. It prints money, and most people really like it. And the revealed preference was like, it's good enough. So anyway,
I will say, I'm just going to read through Reddit's reaction.
Please.
Let's go over to the great r/ChatGPT. GPT-5 is the biggest piece of garbage, even as a paid user. The people are not liking it. Another one, OpenAI just pulled the biggest bait and switch in AI history, and I'm done. Another, if you miss 4.0, speak up now, contact OpenAI support. Deleted my subscription after 2 years.
This is like contact your senator, call your senator. Like, you speak up now. I love
this
that.
Is crazy. I mean, how many people are in the Google subreddit like complaining about various changes to like the Google algorithm?
GPT-5 is clearly a cost-saving exercise. They removed all their expensive, capable models and replaced them with an auto router that defaults to cost optimization. That sounds bad, so they wrap it up as GPT-5 and proclaim it's incredible.
I mean, there's so many times when I fire off an O3 query that a 4.0 could one-shot. Like having a model router makes a ton of sense, even just for consumer experience of like getting the correct answer faster.
A lot of viral posts from people just canceling their subscriptions.
But how many? You know.
Well, I'm just providing context. I'm not saying.
Do you think ARR goes down next month?
Well,
no way.
Well, 1 in 10. How many MAUs does ChatGPT have? Like 700 million?
Something like that.
Like 1 in 10 people in the world have.
They have 100 million. You could back into this, and there's roughly 100 million people in the U.S. that use it weekly.
Yeah.
Based on that 700 million number and the percentage that are outside of the 85% of their weekly actives are outside of the U.S.
So it's like 1 in 10 people in the world aren't clanker MAUs. So it's kind of they're thinking about the bigger market. I feel like in some ways, and then it's like when you want to get to the 1 to like the remaining 90% of the users. Yeah. Do you want a model that thinks for longer? You want more personality. So I think they definitely leaned in on personality. Yeah. Which I think is interesting. I like what Tyler said. It's kind of different than feed in some ways, because you have this like person you talk to. It's like it's like a relationship, and then it just like switches up on how it talks to you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you talk to LLMs at all?
I'm shy.
I don't really talk to them. I mean, I treat them like something I delegate tasks to. Yeah, and I do that a lot. And I'm definitely in the DAU 30 minutes a day. Love ChatGPT, but my workflow is I dictate. Go pull all this data together, put together a report, and I don't mind that it's using a lot of bullet points. I don't mind that it's using a lot of tables. Like, I want that result. Yeah. I want it to look like the result that I get from Google, but just more hydrated.
I do think it's interesting that a lot of people are reporting that they're getting rate limited within an hour of usage as a pro user.
Interesting. I haven't run into any rate limits, but of course, whenever there's like these big, I mean, it's in the top of the business and finance section in Wall Street Journal. Like today is the day that everyone's going to go test it. You'd kind of expect that rate limits and the GPUs are on fire like right now, and then it'll kind of settle in as they provision more resources. I don't know. My take, Tyler, what else do you have?
I just wanted to add some context. So apparently, Rune tweeted this yesterday. He said, by the way, model auto switcher is apparently broken, which is why it's not routing you correctly. It will be fixed soon. So maybe that's cause for why people were mad.
Yeah, that makes sense. So my take is that like yesterday, I think that they won the war with the capital markets in the sense that this change is more bullish for the business because it shows that OpenAI is a dominant consumer app and they have increasing leverage over the customer to route to cheaper models that will save money and be higher margin. There's no doubt that they'll be able to put ads in this. Like the business of the accidental consumer company is as strong as ever, but they kind of lost the battle with the timeline and the hardcore, X users. And
even Yu Chen today is just shared GPT-5 is disappointing, still hallucinates, still M- too much, still can't follow instructions. I miss 4.0, I miss 4.5, I miss 0.3. The big router keeps failing me. Turns out I like the long model list.
Interesting. Stated preference, not revealed preference. Let's check in with that person and see what app they have on their home row in a month. Almost certainly OpenAI. Almost certainly. I would be very shocked if they're like, I'm daily driving something else. But we'll see. There will always be people that use DuckDuckGo. There will be people that use Bing. But there is an increasing scale. Anyway, my take is if they wanted to win the war with the timeline yesterday, and you could roll back the clock, it shouldn't have been the GPT-5 launch. It should have been the GPT launch, and they should have just said, "Hey, we previously." the big number releases corresponded to
so much pressure around the big numbers.
Exactly. It used to be, people would just read it as it's an order of magnitude more pre-trained
imagine
data.
a Julius if you felt pressure before the end of the year to roll out like Julius 2,
3.
and if it wasn't like 5 times better, everyone's going to be like, it's over. Julius is over.
Yeah. Well, there's this whole thing about how many people were still using GPT-4o because they thought it's better than 03.
03 because 3 is a lower number.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and that's probably like, that's probably like 60% of the customer base. Like there's probably a lot of people in that bucket who are just like, they don't know that they should upgrade and get something else. Exactly. It's very natural because they're not like in the weeds, reading about all the different capabilities. They don't understand like what reasoning chain is and all this other stuff. So if they had just come out and said, hey, our product is called Chat, and it's powered by GPT, and we will be constantly improving GPT the way Google Search is constantly improved. Like Google Search has launched a ton of different products. Like, when you search like celebrity, like Bruce Willis age, it doesn't show you just a link to like his Wikipedia. Yeah. It just shows you the age. That was like an improvement to the Google Search experience. And I don't remember them announcing that on stage in the keynote.
I think part of this is presenting the challenge of the infinite ways that people use the product.
Yeah.
A lot of people like us are maybe using it for work and research and things like that, or as a better, Google search. But if you're using it as a companion, like this is jarring, right? Imagine you meet up with an old friend, and suddenly they switched up. They switched up on their day once.
They switched up on their day once.
Yeah, happens all the time. And it happens all the time, but it's jarring, right? It's jarring. I think a lot of people, like some of the heavy power users, the people that are using this for 30 plus hours, 30 plus minutes, hours a day, it's very jarring, and it makes me think, is ChatGPT going to be able to maintain, continue to really serve, like, who do they care about in the long run? Do they want to be
they
someone's
might lose
therapist?
the companion market.
Do they want to? Do they care about the companion market? Elon seems to care a lot about the companion market.
But in terms of knowledge retrieval, very, very few cracks in that strategy right now. Very few cracks.
Sure.
And so if they had just come out and said like, we are going to do more Google like keynotes as opposed to Apple. Like the reason that Apple stands on stage at the iPhone event every year is because every change is extremely quantifiable. Like there used to be 2 cameras, now there are 3. The camera used to be 10 megapixels, now it's 20 megapixels.
It used to be this many gigabytes, now it's this many gigabytes.
Yeah, and even if you don't fully understand, they even abstract that to be like, we now have the M2 chip, the M3 chip. It's 60% faster. Like they're very good. The battery life is 20% longer. Like you can, and even that they abstract into like, you can watch 8 hours of video on one battery as opposed to 6 hours of video on one battery. And so Apple, they do the famous like bento box. I went to ChatGPT, I went to GPT-5 and I said, put together a bento box for the GPT-5 release, like what was actually announced, and then try and give it weight. And they were all super qualitative. There was not, because previously it was like GPT-3 was this big, GPT-4 was this big, and you could visualize tangibly like it has more parameters. There are more weights in the model. And that was like something that people could grapple with a little bit.
Yeah, it's like decreasing sycophancy, right? Aiden yesterday said, I worked really hard over the last few months on decreasing GPT-5 sycophancy. For the first time, I really trust an OpenAI model to push back and tell me when I'm doing something dumb. Wyatt Walls responded and said, that's a huge achievement. Seriously, you didn't just make the model smarter, you made it more trustworthy. That's what good science looks like. That's what future-safe AI needs. So let me say it clearly and without flattery. That's not just impressive, it matters.
So good.
So Wyatt Walls not beating the sycophancy allegations, but again, that's you can't tie that to a specific number, right? So it doesn't feel as meaningful.
Yeah, my other take is like, if we do enter a world where ChatGPT is just on this like relentless like cache machine like run where more people use it, it'll compound, it just becomes the default for knowledge retrieval in chat. What does that mean for other things that they can do to be splashy? Because Google has like, no one would watch a keynote from Google every year just being like, here are the changes we made to core Google search.
Yeah, it's not about that.
It's not interesting.
They'll talk about it, but that's not why people are tuning in.
Even though 1 year they do add, like when you Google a movie, you get like the cast. And that's like kind of cool. It's nice. But like, I don't need to find out about that from a keynote. Like I'm not waiting for that. And that's not a reason, I should go use Google. Like Apple is repitching you every year. They're saying like, you have an iPhone 7. We want you to upgrade to an iPhone 9. Here's the reason why it's better on all these different vectors. Google, like you're never stuck with the old Google. You always have the latest and greatest. So they don't need to repitch you every year. But that doesn't mean Google doesn't need to make noise and do cool things. And most importantly, because Google has such a monopoly over search, they have this cash machine that can just go and fund 20% time projects. Most people focus on like the ones that missed, like Google Glass or all the chat apps. But they did create Gmail. They did create Google Maps. They created Waymo. They created like a bunch of cool stuff. GCP came out of that.
YouTube.
And so YouTube, I mean, that's acquisition,
sponsored.
But acquisition, but they still like, put the resources, and and uniquely with YouTube, they were able to eat the cost of YouTube for a long time until it became profitable. Yeah. And so I feel like this updates me towards like, maybe I'm more bullish on all the side projects. And like, I don't know that the IO device is going to be the one that hits. That might be their Google Glass. Yeah. But if they do 10 crazy projects where they burn $5 billion, like it probably won't matter because they'll be massively profitable. So they will wind up being able to do that subsidized crazy R&D at scale. And if a few of them hit, we're going to get some really cool side projects out of them. So I think that's like an interesting like bull case for like random stuff coming out of OpenAI in the future.
So basically what you're saying is, Apple wants you to make a purchase decision every couple of years.
Yes.
Upgrade your iPhone.
Yes.
And so they need this big marketing event.
Exactly.
Whereas Google, OpenAI, they just want you just to keep using the thing.
Yeah, they want you not to churn.
Yeah.
And a lot of the incremental
and they do
updates
that
to
because
Google.
It's just a habit. It's so ingrained in people.
Exactly.
So the question now that I think anybody that wants to say, if somebody wants to say they're bearish on OpenAI, they have to make the argument that ChatGPT is not a habit for hundreds of millions of people already.
Exactly.
And it is. It is.
Yeah.
I think part of the, I'd be interested to get Tyler Cowen's point of view, because I don't think he would have been that let down by the announcement yesterday, because he's been saying for a while, we've been moving the goalposts, so everybody wants to kind of redefine AGI, but in his mind, it happened earlier this year. And I think that
he's a knowledge retrieval maxer.
He likes
knowledge retrieval.
In 2019 or 2020, if you were pitching someone on a vision of, hey, we're going to be able to put this app in people's pocket that allows them to learn about any topic in the world, understand their world better. I mean, I still think about the use case of just being able to take a picture of like a bunch of wiring or pipe in your house and be like, hey, how do I fix it? And then it just tells you. Like, that's still just so incredible, but people have just like very quickly acclimated to it. And they felt like in some way they were promised that LLMs would be curing diseases on their own at this point. They're not.
And so that example, like you take a picture of the wires and it gives you like a diagram of like how to plug everything in. It's like, that doesn't need a keynote when it goes from 50% accuracy to 70% accuracy. It's probably never going to be 100% accuracy, but the fact that ChatGPT is the default app that people will pull out, take a picture of the wires in the first place, and then give feedback to it, because they'll try the answer and they'll say, that didn't work. That HDMI cable does not fit in that power port or whatever. Yeah. And then that gets fed in. Then there's more RL. Eventually, internally, they develop some bench for it and they hack it and they RL on it, and then it gets good. But that's not going to be GPT-6. That's just going to be like a nice new feature that you notice, like when Google adds like a little extra shopping widget here, or like a little extra detail on when you like the calculator in Google, like you type in a number, it'll just be like, oh, we'll just use a calculator for that instead of Googling for searching the open web for the answer to your math question.
It's like merging
I think
PR.
if we could, if the industry could go back in time, the thing to do would have been to bolt the goalposts to the ground, so people couldn't keep moving them back over and over. Thing. I mean, I left yesterday.
No one in the industry was doing any bolting. Everyone in the industry was moving the goal. They're just as guilty as moving the goalposts, because they would hop on podcasts and be like, okay, well, like, we did this. What about the next thing? Like we want to underwrite against that, right? Give us credit.
I mean, we ended the day yesterday just incredibly bullish on wrappers and like
application layer,
certain categories of software.
Yeah.
And bullish on humanity. I mean, I was joking, and it kind of pissed people off. I said, I've updated my timelines. You now have at least 4 years to escape the permanent underclass.
Yep.
Completely a joke. I think that humans will continue to find ways to create value and create things for a very long time.
Yeah.
But it did feel like everybody should breathe. Anybody that actually had a genuine fear around that should breathe a sigh of relief and just focus on being great at their work.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I think technology is going to increase income inequality, increase the power law, increase the distribution, but also increase economic mobility. And so somebody who starts with nothing will be able to become extremely, extremely wealthy. And people will also fall from grace like crazy, because if they're not staying on the cutting edge, they'll lose everything. So I don't think that there's such a thing as like permanent underclass. Like I don't even believe in that. I think that's not going to be a thing. But there will be more there will be more scenarios where there's $100 million in your laptop. It's your job to get it out. Basically, that's the main. Anyway,
yeah, and the other stuff that wasn't really, I mean, was it covered at all yesterday? But just generally, like image generation wasn't covered broadly. It feels like that is a super exciting area. We had Genie launch this week, which got less attention than even the open models and GPT-5, and that's transformative. I also think I'm still kind of waiting to see what GPT-5 will produce on if, Sam does a lot of vague posting, but he was talking about the fast fashion era of SaaS.
Yeah.
And Mitchell yesterday on the research team at OpenAI was talking about being able to just generate one shot a game in chat and then being able to share that. I can see a world where we have another kind of viral Studio Ghibli moment where people are like, use this prompt, change these details, and you can just generate a first-person shooter game or something to that effect. And I still expect that kind of thing, but when being promised curing cancer, it will feel like a bit of a letdown to a lot of people.
Yeah, the problem with game is I like an auteur. I like a Last of Us. I like a God of War. I like someone who is like a life's work. Obsessive.
This is like Hunter Biden going on his recent interview. Your John's vice is video games. Never seen him play one, but apparently
when GTA 6 drops, you might not see.
I was surprised. I mean, Amjad said late last night, can't help but feel the crushing weight of diminishing returns. We need a new S-curve. And this is interesting. I think he's talking about like in the context of Replit. Yeah. I don't know that they need a new S-curve.
No, right? They are the new S-curve. The new S-curve is applications
unlocking capability.
And there we have you were saying capability overhang. It's almost like a capability underhang. It's like the models are capable of doing things, but they need a lot of help, a lot of integrations, a lot of what you're doing with Julius, a lot of harnessing, and then they need to actually be put in the hands of people and made useful for real business tasks that drive value. And so I would imagine that we will see that rollout continue in the same way that, all these people are using ChatGPT. They're getting slight little benefits here and there, and that should just compound and compound. Similar to the internet. Like it was a very smooth rollout, but everything got a little bit smoother, a little bit faster. And then eventually it had sort of profound effects where companies could scale even faster because the internet existed. Like you can't have a ChatGPT moment in a pre-internet era. You just cannot roll out something that fast when you have to mail it to somebody on a disk. It just doesn't happen.
One thing we didn't get to cover with Mark that I was interested, maybe the next time he comes on, but like how OpenAI is thinking about moonshots. He did mention that they have teams internally on the research team that are not focused on the next version of GPT-5 or sort of incremental improvements. And it feels like the point of view that I have is OpenAI is now a consumer and enterprise software company.
Totally.
In the business of converting free users to paid users.
Yeah.
But they can still, in the background, be thinking about what is the next paradigm, right? How do we get that next S-curve? And that just looks like a scaled tech company, right? This is what Google's doing forever. Balaji says LLMs may have topped out for now, but the broader AI deployment has just begun, showing a chart of Waymo weekly rides in California. So
the Clanker rollout, Clanker deployment has just begun. I like this other post, doing a Clanker microaggression. Okay, haha, but where were you downloading from originally?